team.
We're bringing the fun. We're bringing the thunder. We are Thunder. Flesh and blood down under. Whoop, whoop. Who have we got tonight, John?
We have the FabDB guy.
I don't even know his name either.
Welcome, Kirk.
He's known as Kai Bay or Kirk. Kirk's the real name.
It's effectively Kai B.
Kai B, sorry.
Yeah. Andrew says Kai Bay, and I still haven't corrected him on it.
Don't correct him.
Yeah, that's right.
Welcome, man.
Thank you.
So Kirk is local to us, Sydney guy, although not as active in the Fab player scene. Because you've got a
Unfortunately.
million other things you do.
Yeah.
But local, as in we saw you at the calling. You could drive here in the evening, which is great.
Nice. Not in peak hour, which is even better.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I have, look, John and myself, we both have a burning question, and I want to come out guns a-blazing. Mm-hmm. You are the creator of FabDB.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
Great website, great resource for the community, but you must have some insights that a lot of others don't. So tell us, Kirk, is Flesh and Blood growing? Is it shrinking? Is traffic to your site increasing or decreasing? Have you seen trends? Like, talk to us. Is Fab dying, like the naysayers are saying? Tell us, and be truthful. Don't sugarcoat
Yeah, of
anything.
course. Yep.
Let us know.
Yeah. So first things first, you won't hear a lie ever out of this mouth.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, that's actually gotten me into trouble a few times. So not everyone appreciates brutal honesty. So you won't get anything else. Look, at the moment, it's kind of hard to tell. I've definitely seen an sort of uptick in traffic recently. The 2020 and 2021 sort of spikes from the various sets and the growth of the community were huge, to say the least. You're sort of talking about sort of 10, 20-fold growth. But the past 6 months has been much more sort of conservative in regards to sort of how the project is growing, and that's across all the websites. I will say one thing though, I think there's a lot of more content out there, so Wrath Times doesn't get as much traffic as it was getting originally. Like September through December, January last year was really big for Wrath Times, but it's quieted down since then. But for FabDB, to give you guys some insights, the sort of monthly traffic I was looking at was getting close to about 500,000 visits per month, which is good. It's a sort of a respectable number for any website, but that's come down considerably in the last 6 months. But the number of users is sort of seems to keep growing. So, which is an interesting pattern in the sense that it means that the people that are on there aren't coming back as often, but there's more users hopping on there, which is kind of interesting. So the growth, it seems now on FabDB, seems to be very tightly tied to the actual set releases, which I think is actually fairly common for most TCGs. It's just that the last few years, because the growth has been so strong, you couldn't really see where the set releases were. It was just like everything was just going up. But yeah, with Everfest was massive. I thought that sort of hit, I think, 9 or 10K users a day on that, which was phenomenal. But it's come down considerably since then. It's now sitting about 7,000 a day. So still good, still happy, but it's not the sort of as a sort of superstar growth it was having in the community has definitely sort of died off a bit, which is a bit unfortunate. So
How did Uprising look?
Not as strong as Everfest, actually, but it seems to be holding better than Everfest. So whereas Everfest was kind of like a really sort of strong spike and then came down considerably to about half where it was at the peak, Uprising has come up to about, I say, 80% of where Everfest hit, but is actually maintaining that traffic, which Everfest didn't do for some reason. So Uprising seems to have a bit more longevity that Everfest didn't have, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Fair.
Are you seeing trends? Like, are you seeing more people looking at, I guess, like competitive deck lists or casual deck lists or blitz or constructed or other facets or building their own decks? Can you talk on that? Any sort of trends that you've picked up on, or what does a typical user do nowadays on FabDB?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tricky. The vast majority of users or players, I should say, in the game are always going to be casual, and that's true of pretty much any TCG. I consider myself very casual as well. I'd love to be able to compete more, but I just can't. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as to why I can't. And it's not just about sort of the projects, there's other things going on, but casuals are always going to be sort of the mainstay of it. And James released some stats a little while ago now, sort of putting at the player base at around about 250,000 players. And FabDB at least sort of services about 10% of that. In terms of the total number of users are actually on there. So about between 25 and 30,000 users. But I would wager that most of those users are actually not so casual. You know, they're actually more interested in sort of developing a competitive deck. They're researching their decks, looking into all sorts of things like that. But there's definitely a lot of drive and energy at the moment for sort of competitive deck lists and that sort of thing. And so, there's a lot of websites like FabMeta that are doing that sort of thing. And that's sort of partly why Techno Labs was built as well, just kind of help support that aspect of the community, those who are just after stats and analytics and want to see the top decks and that sort of thing. And so one of the things I really want to do for Techno Labs is actually to start developing deck archetypes. So sort of find the top 8 for Briar, for example. What do those decks look like? And so how likely to see certain cards of that within that deck. So, and that's a bit trickier. So I'm still working through that one.
It's tricky with no digital client. Like you have to get stats. You can't get...
the data aggregation is a pain in the ass.
Yes, yeah. Because
thankfully it's all automated now.
This stuff, I was talking to my brother about this. Like he plays Hearthstone. Think of a game like League of Legends as overlays that record your game stats and sends it to an aggregate. But you're talking like 5 million live players a day.
Yeah.
So
insane stats.
You can pick a hero in League and there's 100 something heroes and it'll tell you 53% win rate on this build.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to think much. I guess whoever pilots it matters, but you can immediately go to the best, the
builds
most
that work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And we can sort of get that with the top 8 placements, and that's what Techno Labs does. I'd really love to get like all of the decks that are sort of particularly in sort of like Worlds and that sort of thing, where you've got 900, 1,000 decks sort of in play for those events. But unfortunately, they just don't get published. So unless you're talking directly with the event creators or the event managers, and they're dealing with it that way, then
Can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
Actually, you did put out on Twitter. In all fairness, I think you were talking...
I put out a lot on Twitter.
Yeah. I noticed you dug up someone's very old post today and laughed at it. I was like, why is this on my feed? And I'm like, it's Kirk. No, so the suggestion is one thing. I use your service like a fiend. I just bought a master set of every card in the game.
Oh, wow.
So nice. I can actually build any deck I want.
Fantastic.
Do you know what FabDB is lacking?
What?
It doesn't give me the card number and the set. Like, it doesn't say Mon 101 next to the card. It would make I think it would make a lot of people's life easier to go dig out the card.
Where?
Because you have that data.
In what location though? It definitely does it on the card database.
Okay, so here's what I'm saying. I don't. So let's have a discussion. I built a Drow my pummel deck. Mm-hmm. I built it on my PC because it's way quicker than building it in FabDB than it ever is in paper, right?
Yeah.
Because you just make a mess. So I built it. Now I got to pick how to export it because I want to come out here to my lounge room, put cards on the floor on a playmat and find them, right?
Gotcha.
So what I do is I print in grayscale a one sheet. Usually I'll print the deck submission form because it's the most concise.
Yep.
But you can also output it as text.
Yep.
And you can output it, there's a third way, I can't remember. Either way, none of them are efficient for me to go build the deck because none of them show me the... So
you're just looking at the card numbers, I've got 3 of those, bam, bam, bam.
Well, it's a bit trickier than that. Because I'm printing in gray, this is like real feedback because it's like a day-to-day problem for me.
Question though.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you're sorting your cards alphabetical or number?
But this is exactly what I'm talking to Kirk about.
Yeah. I know. So
what it is...
Why aren't you sorting your cards alphabetically?
One sec. Because it's not the only way. No,
I do it by number as well.
Just one sec. Just one sec. You'll understand where I'm going with it, and that's exactly the point, right? I personally have it sorted by number from number 1 to 180 in
because you're a collector. That's right.
But that's how it is in my folder. It looks the best that way in the folder as well.
Yep.
But even if it was alphabetical, right now when FabDB, so if I go the tournament registration, is that alphabetical right now? There you go. I would love to see an export to build the deck with the card number next to it. Because I personally am pulling it out of binders in numerical order. So if it goes Mon 101, I can go exactly to the right page of my binder and pull out Mon 101. Now, I can visually tell by looking at the card what it is because I've seen the card before. But realistically, if all you gave me was the card numbers, it would be quicker than reading the name.
Yeah, for sure.
And the data's there. So if you have a way to output and then, it says tournament registration, it goes copy text, which is useful as well. It'd be great if there was a button that said... or just that the text version actually gave the card number.
Yeah, I can probably... I A lot of the exports now are direct to the PDF. There's a zip export as well, which has a few files in there. So I could probably just add another one to the zip file.
Or just in one of the, like, obviously the
They're
tournament.
literally just like a list, right? It's like, blah, 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 these are all the cards.
Yeah. I just know that I personally have them sorted that way, and I'm like,
Why do you sort by number and not alphabet? That's what I don't get.
First, I'm new to card games. This is a good thing. I never did this in Magic, Pokemon, nothing. This is my first. So I'm way ahead of where I was 6 months ago. Like
Magic didn't have that capability either. It was all by card name. You couldn't do it by number, especially the earlier cards didn't have any printing.
See,
of the
that's
card number.
why. But for me, the card number makes way more sense in my head because it's like it's numbered. MON is the set. I find that folder.
Yep.
101 is it's X amount, like it's 12 cards per sheet. So I got to go X amount of sheets deep, and I'll find it straight away. Alphabetical to me would actually take me longer, but maybe it's more efficient.
Well, my relationship with FabDB when I first found the site was through our mutual friend, owner of Blood Rush Gaming up on the Central Coast. Big shout out to Ollie. He owns a store, does a lot of card sorting.
Yep.
And they're still out of control, but I had piles of cards everywhere. And I'm like, geez, I need to start sorting cards. I said to Ollie, how the hell do you sort these cards efficiently? He said to me, go to FabDB. You can do the whole set, whatever it was. Monarch, alphabeticalize on FabDB. And that's what I would do. I would sort my binders based on how the visual description
how the cards are displayed.
how the cards were displayed on your website.
Yep.
God, it was so easy. And how they're displayed on your website when they're sorted alphabetically, that's how they appear in my folders.
Yep.
And I sorted because it's very hard for a store to sort by card number. Like if they're finding cards for a customer, it's probably much easier to go by
I would say so as well.
So and
As the game grows,
I sorted by number because I was collecting master sets, and so of each set, so I wanted to see it exactly as it was printed. And so at one point I knew if you just told me a number in ARC or WTR, I was like, it's this card, and boom, I knew where it was. But I also sort of knew how the sets were laid out in terms of like the heroes, their arrangements, but
there's a lot of logic to
the Majestics. Yeah,
there's a lot of logic to Fab if you go by number because it goes hero, generic. Like
but it's a pattern you have to learn still. Whereas if you're going alphabetically, you don't need to learn the pattern.
So I'm not like arguing which one's better, but when you buy a master set, which I just did, it's by number.
Yep. And everyone's different too because the ordering actually of the cards in FabDB have changed quite a few times. One of them was performance reasons because of all the printing stuff I had on there. And so it was originally by number. And so then I changed, I'll change it alphabetical. I think that makes more sense to everybody anyway. And then there's a huge bunch of people that's like, what have you done? Like, what's happening with the ordering? And so I eventually ended up changing it back because I fixed the performance issue. And then everyone's like, why is it changed away from alphabetic? So I ended up just adding a sort filters like, everybody's different. So everybody's going to sort it by different things. But that could be expanded as well, I think, to order by hero, order by class, order by whatever.
I actually made a video on that. It was one of my, I think, first couple of months doing YouTube videos. I made a specific video explaining people how to sort cards alphabetically using FabDB.
Right, okay.
And it was quite popular, got a good response. But it saved me a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of time using the website because I literally just looked at the images on the FabDB website and just mirrored that into my folders. Yeah. So it was,
Quick question for you though, hot take. Bordered or borderless?
For what?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
So FabDB has a feature on there where you can turn off the borders on all the cards, and so you see them completely without borders. And I've noticed actually quite a few people do like it borderless. So whenever I see a card that's posted online somewhere and it's got no border, I go, that's come from FabDB.
Yeah, because that's right. It took you a lot of time to do that, didn't it?
Not really. I use a website called Imagix, which allows you to do all sorts of real-time image manipulation on all your images. And it's relatively cheap for what you're getting for it. So I just go, crop this much.
Why did you do that? What's the purpose of that feature?
I liked it without the borders.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the stuff on FabDB came from things that I wanted to use and wanted to do. So,
like LSS would give a borderless image to the printer. The real raw image of a card would be borderless, and then they have to print it with a border when they print it. Because you could look at the mark.
No, I don't know if that's true because printings usually want like a bleeding edge on all the prints. Yeah.
No, but because I'm worked in the print industry for long enough, it's that white border is for the rollers in the printer to grab it, basically.
Oh,
on the
fair
outside,
enough.
right? They can't. So now, they print on big sheets, but they got to cut and stuff. So you'll notice centering on.
And then you get the full arts. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah, but they're worse.
Ruined.
Usually the centering on the front because there's less. So the suggestion I was going to say before, which would benefit you and the whole community. So maybe obviously you speak with LSS James directly. Just ask him, why can't we just officially register through FabDB
for events?
So what I'm saying is when they go Pro Tour Lil is coming, register your deck, and it lets you register through FabDB that links into LSS. Like it just is done.
Yeah, so
Because right now we go FabDB export, and then I got to give like a paper copy to the TO.
yes, so this has been on my mind for a long time, and actually there's a whole event management system on FabDB that hasn't really been utilized yet. And actually when COVID hit, I had to talk to James and said, look, I want to get events and stuff moving through FabDB, tighter integration with TTS, and do all that sort of stuff. And I said, I just want to charge stores sort of small, like $5 a month or something, super cheap. And James, this sort of speaks again to sort of his integrity and sort of them as a company, is he basically like, don't charge the stores because he wanted the game to go. He didn't want any further hindrance to it at all, even $5 a month. He's like, we'll pay for whatever store signs up.
Wow.
And I didn't feel right about that. So I kind of just stopped. I was like, doesn't feel right to me, so I'm not going to do that. Despite the fact he's basically, almost like an open checkbook. Whoever I can sign up, he'll do it. But it didn't feel right. So I just didn't do that. But coming back to your point regarding events and submissions, the event system is already in place. Players can actually sort of register for events. They can submit their decks as well. It's just that missing piece between sort of Gem and FabDB to kind of get that working.
But for FabDB reasons, if Worlds is coming, there's no one in Worlds whose deck won't be important enough for me to check it. Now, it can't be available.
I'm going to have to watch
day.
out for the budget on the PDF generator on that one as well before that happens.
But do you get what I mean? Like, how good would it be if the only way to register your deck to a calling is to register it in FabDB with your player number and that, but it actually puts it in a list that you get? Because now I'm assuming you're not saving everyone's list when they go export. Like, there might be. What I'm saying is,
I don't think it does. No.
Well, you wouldn't know what event it's for, right? Like, even though we type it, it's not officially for calling Utrecht. It's just someone typed in calling Utrecht. You get what I mean is you don't have a data point where you can go calling decks. Pro Tour jersey decks,
no.
and you get every deck from that because it was officially registered by the tournament organizer in FabDB.
Yeah, the only way that could happen is if we have the event system set up and people are using it, and it submits that way. So I could make a sort of a bit more noise about the feature and do it that way. But in reality, what I really want from LSS, James, is API access to Gem. So I can register players, I can get all sorts, because then...
Sorry, can you just, for dummies like me, API, what's that?
Yeah, so... API stands for Application Programmable Interface, which effectively just means that you have sort of this external system that you can talk to and do things. And that happens at programming levels and sort of network levels.
So that's an interface into the Gem system?
Yeah. So they would expose a public API, which we could then talk to from FabDB and then do all sorts of operations on that. And the cool thing about that then, if people are using FabDB for submissions, is that I then have access to decks that are being used for events that aren't just top 8. And so then we get sort of a real understanding in regards to how the cards perform on the meta.
And it's tying to win rates and stuff. Eventually, that data is very important.
Yeah.
Like if you get the... So if when I register...
So cards on Tech Labs do have win rates. They all have win rates.
Yeah.
But it's only top 8,
if I register for my local armory, but it's run through FabDB, which is the whole point is what you're saying, and then my crazy Pummel Droma who no one's played yet ends up winning...
Yeah.
The win rate will be like 100% the day it comes out, right? But people could see that. And then over time, you could actually see these weird brews, not from world champions necessarily, but they're like performing in a local meta will trickle up.
Yes.
You'll actually learn a lot more than just listening to the couple of talking heads that do this as content.
Correct.
Because you can go dig in the data. Because there'll be decks that have played 4 games, won 4 games, right? That's just an anomaly. But you'll get like... Right now, people look at, Bolton's not a meta deck, but its top 8 showing as a conversion percentage was the highest.
Yes.
And that's like a good signal if you're trying to find an off-meta deck to play, is to find low showing decks. Like there was only 8 of them out of 800 players, but 2 of them made it to the top 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of data would be a lot more readily available if every local event was saved in. You get a couple of years of that, and it's nuts what you can see.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. If you look at the top 8 stats on Tech Labs, effectively what you can see sometimes in some cards is you might only have one deck with one particular card that places in top 8 or even just wins an event, and it's the only deck that shows up with that card. So it's like some real spicy shit. And it's really interesting because that card shows us like 100% kind of win rate, but it's only had actually one placement.
Yes.
Or
But this
one
is
top 8
the
placement.
stuff that actually will point you towards stuff that can win.
Yes.
Because it's out of the blue. Like no one's expecting it.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's in there and it's very cool. Tell us about the other project. So obviously FabDB is the big one that people know you for.
Yeah.
Rate times came before or after?
Oh no, way after. Oh, I should say way. It wasn't that late. But FabDB launched November 2019, and then Wrath Times was launched in 2021. So pretty much almost a year and a half after FabDB. But I'd had the idea for Wrath Times probably since January or February 2020, in the sense that FabDB actually had articles sort of right for it. But it wasn't a very good content system. It was all sort of scratch built. I wasn't using a CMS to do it. And I don't mind scratch building things, but if you can't make a good going of it, I just get kind of pissed off personally. So
Just a question again. I'm not a computer program nut. I don't know any of that. But just, entertain me here. Is there a world in which you would move all these projects, Rate Times, Takeover Labs, all under the FabDB banner? Like, is that something that you've thought about, or reasons why you didn't go down that way? Like, I always, whenever I look at FabDB, the big gorilla in the room, you've probably played Magic yourself, it's MTG Goldfish, right? It's like, I'm sure you're pretty versed in looking at that and seeing what they provide. Like, why did you decide to split things up into different websites, different projects, and just sort of having this one mothership that you go to one site and it has it all there?
Yeah, it's a really good question for starters, and it's something I still sort of worry about a little bit, whether it was the right move to split the projects up. But the long and short of it is that if I want to do things properly on these projects without turning them into monoliths, so monoliths in sort of the programming world means that you just have one massive code base. It becomes harder to manage for starters. As you get team members on board, you're opening up your entire system to everybody straight away. But the real reason why I did it is because if I have Wrath Times, for example, as its own separate project, I can use different tooling, I can use different languages, I can use the right tools for the job depending on what the project is. So for Wrath Times, that meant finding a content management system that was going to support all the requirements I have for Wrath Times, including potentially in the future multilingual support as well, which is something I want to do, like start publishing content in Spanish or whatever. And I'm not just talking about translations, like actually taking on sort of flesh and blood players who speak Spanish and want to write Spanish content. If I was to build that system or use that on FabDB, it could definitely work, and we did have content on there, but I felt that having its own space, not crowded with everything else, effectively makes it an easier go-to for people, and also makes it easier to reason from a business perspective as well. It's like, do I increase costs on FabDB for everybody to kind of access content? Do I have different tiers, what sort of thing, which is what we do on Patreon, or, I don't know, but I have had people ask me before, like, why don't we do article content on FabDB? And we used to, but I just wasn't happy with the end result. So, and then Takeover Labs, you'll definitely see more integration between FabDB and Takeover Labs in the future. So, cards on FabDB will certainly start showing card rankings from Takeover Labs, direct from Takeover Labs. And then just, if you want to see more information, you sort of click on that and then go to Takeover Labs. There's other things from Takeover Labs I really want to do. There's certain deck analytics that I think makes more sense on FabDB rather than Takeover Labs, so setting up integration as well. But again, Takeover Labs uses technology, like the tech stack set up to do data aggregation on Takeover Labs is one I'm very proud of, because it uses graph databases to, I won't go into too much detail there, but basically graph databases enable me to do really interesting queries against the relationships between objects. So let's say, Fennel Spring Tunic and, Bravo, star of the show. If I want to see their relations and sort of how they interact on the global stage together, I use a graph database for that. If I'm using sort of a relational database, those queries become very tricky and non-performant very quickly. And so again, if I had that all on FabDB, I've now got sort of MySQL on my main database. I've got another database for Takeover Labs. I've got another one for Wrath Times all together. And it just becomes a bit harder to manage over time. So,
it's I can't imagine. Look, the integration bit is probably the way to go. It'd be cool to like click onto a top 8 deck and it's linked to the article of someone explaining it, or do you know what I mean? Like that kind of integration.
Yeah, so we will do that in the future. Wrath Times will have its content aggregated to FabDB at some point.
Because I personally, I don't like. I like I'm building a site. I think I've sent you the link. It's very minimalist. I like the less information, the better. Because I get very. I don't. If your site looked like MTG Goldfish, which I visited once,
I'd right click and get out.
For me, it's a bit, but also I know from being a tech kid, basically, those sites always started simple and then they kept adding.
Yes.
So if you
exactly.
you used it for 10 years, you're familiar enough that it doesn't scare you with the 50 things on the screen. But the first visit, you're like, too much.
And they've got all the ads and stuff on there as well, which I just don't like.
Yeah, like FabDB is, you go on, it's pretty obvious what you're looking at straight away.
And I actually think there's too much on there. Like there's information on the card pages that I actually want to get rid of because
but it's not too scary as a first visit. Like the first time I saw FabDB, I worked it out. It didn't. Like I didn't need 2 or 3 prods by a friend. No, that's where you go to build a deck. And it's quite straightforward. Yep. But the integration would be cool. And the integration of the card, like being able to highlight a Tekla Labs button and it shows you Command and Conquer in the deck you're building is a 20% or 80%. Yeah. It'd be cool.
Yeah, so the long-term goal actually for Tekla Labs is to actually create a recommendation engine for FabDB. That was the whole point. Yep. So it's great to kind of see this
stats. Like to help you build a deck.
Yeah.
So you can go with a blank deck and it goes, we'd recommend these.
No. It goes further than that. So let's say, for example, you've set up Bravo and you've got Anothos or something there and maybe a couple of other cards, piece of equipment. You're like, okay, well, where can I take this? It'll so you ask for a recommendation of it, and then it'll ask Tekla Labs, and Tekla Labs will basically just like sort out through stats. Go, okay, these are the cards you're most likely to see with these ones, or do you want to see the least likely ones? Like, do you want Spice?
Yeah,
so those sorts of things. So
wild card.
Yeah, and that'll be completely free. Like that won't be locked behind subscriptions or anything like that. It's just like I think that's gonna be an awesome feature.
Man, what should tell the community and definitely me and I'm sure Paul as well. If part of getting this stuff to work the best is to get stores signed up to the events or something, you just tell us what because that's all data. No, but that's the more data you have, the better, right?
Yeah, I mean, it makes Tekla Labs way more powerful. Yeah. The more
if all it is shops to sign up, send me a link. We'll talk to Ollie. Funnily enough, I run some events. I run drafts downstairs like once a week.
Yep. We could do test runs with you if you like. I mean,
but
I had Michael
any
Galea.
armory I go to, I'm pretty sure I could go, can we try this? It puts all the data in. I think people will be up for it.
The challenge there is I got Michael Galea who ran RC Crew Games. Awesome guy. I really love. Shout out to Michael. I got him to use it, but the immediate pushback from the players is basically like, why isn't this on Facebook? Like, why are you doing events through FabDB? And so that's a serious challenge. It's like it's a fair question. Like, everybody's used to using Facebook, but the power of using FabDB to manage events, receive deck submissions, validate them straight away, so you don't even have to look at the decks, and then have them come through, without having to do print-offs or anything is sublime.
If you think about it this way, you physically can't submit an illegal deck on FabDB. If
you can actually.
No, but can you?
Yeah. So say for example, there are ways to do it. So
don't tell me.
No. But like, it's good to know because there are certain things that you can do when you're managing a deck where it doesn't do validation. So if you change the deck format, for example, which is a critical one. So if you change from constructed to blitz and you've got 3 cards of something in there, it's not going to automatically validate it.
What I'm saying though is usually when you build a deck, you can't go over the card limit.
No. The biggest problem has actually been the PDF export. There's been a couple of occasions where maybe a card isn't rendered properly or it's gone off the edge. I was like, shit.
Yeah. Oh, look,
because I've actually had players who have received warnings, unfortunately, because their deck wasn't quite right. And then they're okay because they were actually missing a card, not adding a card.
Yes.
But yeah.
That's fair.
So, you obviously know your tech. Talk to us. How have you always had a passion for computer programming? When did that start? Like you said before, you've grown up on the east coast of Australia. Like, were you always into computers and programming? Like, I'm quite interested in that because I know I've got some friends myself. They wanted to be computer programmers, went to uni, started a computer science degree and found out very quickly that computer programming wasn't for them.
Yeah, I think for most people going the computer science route is the wrong way to do it.
Sure.
Because you get thrown into some really hectic stuff straight away. And I didn't really get into the computer science stuff until quite late in my career because then I was... had a good programming background, but also 2, there was things I was wanting to do sort of in gaming and other things was like, I actually kind of need some of that theory to kind of get things working. So yeah, if you're heading down that route, I liken it to mathematics in school. If you don't have sort of a realistic application for the mathematics you're learning, a lot of kids are just like, why the fuck are we learning mathematics? Like, this is a waste of time. And then, so 15, 20 years, like I actually really like doing calculus in my spare time now. It's a fun thing to do for me. I'm a nerd. But back in school, I couldn't see any use for it. Yeah. And so I just found it also, I actually ended up failing mathematics sort of later, I think school. But coming back to your question, my dad bought a Commodore 64 when I think I was 7 or 8. And so utterly blown away by that. And I actually remember him getting in trouble by my mum when he did that. It wasn't money he was meant to be spending, but anyway, it set me up for life, really. And he brought home these Commodore 64 magazines. And C64 magazine had these pages and pages and pages of hex codes. And basically what you did is you open up a particular program in on the Commodore and then basically just type in manually all these codes. And then if you got it right, you got to run a program. And if you got it wrong, well, you got to figure something else out to do with the rest of your day. So that is what planted the seed. And then when I was 13, I actually ended up buying my own PC. But that was more for gaming. And I didn't work out that I actually wanted to do programming stuff until I was 17 or 18.
Okay.
Started building websites. And it started with gaming, actually. So, all of this is quite heavily related. And I was running clans and all sorts of things. And I wanted to build websites for those clans to help the players and sort of keep us all well managed.
What game?
That was for StarCraft, original StarCraft.
Yeah, cool.
Me and my friends played that a lot, and then it sort of moved into Counter-Strike and Quake 3 and that sort of stuff. But it started there. So building websites to sort of support my hobby, really. Yep. And not from a financial perspective, just I found it really interesting to have sort of the players registered and doing it that way. So it started there, and then when I was 18, I was a loser. I was doing nothing with my life. And mum sent me to this, basically like a small sort of government-funded tech course. We sort of there for 3 months. And that's where I got introduced to PHP, which is a programming language. And then that's what set it up for me. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Like I can make these things and submit forms and all that stuff. But yeah. So I'm very self-taught all the way.
So you don't do FabDB for a living?
No. It's a long way off that.
What's your day job?
My day job, I'm doing a lot of things, but I'm a technical director and co-founder for a company called Creative Force. So I run an engineering team of 14 engineers now, and that's global. So not everyone's in Australia. I've got one engineer in Australia, and then everyone else is either in Europe or we just picked up a guy in Egypt. He's joined the team, so excited to work with him. That's my day job. So I basically architect software solutions for the programs and stuff that we build at work.
And the new game you're building is a hobby project?
Yes, that's been on my desk since early 2000s.
Because you've been trying to hire for it on Twitter?
Yes. That's not going so well.
No?
So
Maybe
what are you
I can
building?
help.
What type of game?
So back in, when I was playing a lot of Quake and Counter-Strike, I used to play these games called Starsphere and Planetarian. And they're basically browser-based real-time strategy games. But back in those days, that was one of the only ways to have like truly massively multiplayer games. We're talking in those days, so tens of thousands of players playing these games. And so they were the real OG MMOs and that sort of thing. And they were super fascinating. So it was text-based with sort of pretty images sort of, in the background and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, I think sort of around 2003, 2004, those games kind of died. I don't really know what reasons for, but I was building sort of games around that sort of stuff as well. My most successful project was called Droids RPG, which is basically you build up mechs and you sort of attach weapons and stuff to their mount points. Then you go and sort of fight against the computer and against other players. And it was a lot of fun. And so ever since then, I've always wanted to get back to it. And so the game I'm building now called Halcyon Online is that, but because I've now got 20 plus years experience behind me, I know the job that will be done on it will be really good. And I'm quite confident actually that I can kind of build a game that will kind of be an industry leader in that space. And there's a couple of sort of competitors in there as well that I know are going to be a bit problematic because they've sort of been in the space for a long time, but they're dated systems and I think I can do a better job.
So you're talking browser-based, text-based, that's the idea?
Yeah, it's a text-based browser game with a lot of imagery and art to kind of support it. So to give you an idea, it's a space-based real-time strategy game. And so you're basically colonizing planets, building fleets, sending it off to other players, engaging in diplomacy. If there's any listeners out there that sort of 4-buy games, so explore, expand, exterminate, and I forget the last one. Those sorts of games, like Endless Space, Homeworld, that sort of stuff, they're really going to like the sort of game that I'm building.
What's the time frame?
That's a tricky one. I'd love to do it as soon as possible, but there's too much on my plate. So in the next 12 to 24 months, hopefully.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we have a small audience, but maybe you find someone. What's the job you're hiring for specifically?
So there's two. One is involved in the art of the game, and there's a couple of pieces for that. So the guy that I've hired, I really hope works out because he does some really amazing artwork, which are basically spacescapes. So if you've ever seen people work in Photoshop build like beautiful planets and nebula and that sort of thing, he does that sort of stuff. And so I'm getting him to build at first the homepage splash screen, which is basically sort of what I call a galaxy rise. So you're looking from behind your home world, and the galaxy sort of splayed out behind that. It'll be a really beautiful piece. And then hopefully, if that sort of works out, I'll get him to do basically all of the star fields, the galaxy backgrounds, the planets in the game. And then I'll need to get someone who does spacecraft and buildings, and I need to get a UI and UX person. I did hire someone. That didn't work out at all. I just could tell they were being pretty half-assed about it, unfortunately, but it happens.
So mainly in the art and UX, UI stuff.
Yeah, all the programming will be on me, and I didn't realize actually how big a project this is. I was starting to develop like the game systems and stuff, like just building. So to give everybody some background, the web itself, when you're talking websites, it's actually stateless, meaning that there's no... You're not saving any information by default when you visit a web page. I mean, obviously you have sessions and cookies and that sort of stuff. But in order to make a browser-based game feel like it's real time, you have to do some pretty tricky shenanigans on the server side and in the front end to make it feel like everything's running just constantly. And so building the technology to kind of manage that system was actually really, really difficult. And that's just one system, and I've got to build like 50 different game systems to support it. So it's taking a long time to...
Is there anything currently in the market now that I could go to a web browser and play a web?
Yeah, so the one that I'd say is probably the most popular is one called OGame, OGAME.org. Really beautiful graphics. It's been a really stable, good game system for, I don't know, 10, 15 years maybe. So it's been around for a long time, and they've gone through various iterations. But yeah, the thing I don't like about most of those games is they're microtransaction heavy. So in order to basically play the game, you pay to win, essentially. And I want to take the exact same sort of model I've used on FabDB, which is it's all free, but if you want to sort of support the project and get some sort of quality of life improvements, just to make things sort of your life easier in the game, then you can do that.
Like Path of Exile.
Yeah, so Path of Exile actually has a really good approach to it.
Hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. Because it's just bloody good, so you give them money.
Yeah, absolutely. So
the thing with microtransactions, if the game isn't good, you can make money.
Yeah.
While if you go the free-to-play, just if you want a cosmetic, you can pay for it.
Yeah.
Type of model.
Yes. Which I've done in Path of Exile. I love the game, so I've bought quite a few things.
I bought every pack, even when I don't play this season.
Oh, really?
I started in Kickstarter with them. Like, not Kickstarter, but...
You're going to play PoE too then, I presume?
100%.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I don't have the time for it to sync like I used to. By the way, there's another game based in New Zealand.
Yeah, I've played Path. Yeah,
very good.
Not hectic, but I've had a little.
But they've gone. They were free at the beginning, and
they're still free.
Their model is still like Kickstarter. You pick a pledge, a thing, and this is what you get in the new expansion. It's all micro. It's all cosmetic.
I don't do the pledges. I just buy like...
It's all cosmetic.
Yeah, cosmetic stuff, like whatever I feel
You cannot gain one level. You cannot gain one extra percentage of drop rate. Everyone's in the same boat. But you know what I can look way flashier than you if I spend $10,000. Sure. Yeah, but that's it. That's
exactly.
It. But it's tempting. They've done it smart, because if you never buy microtransactions, you look like crap. Like your armor looks like raggedy. Even if you're the best player in the world, you look raggedy.
Like one of the cities of that.
But the gameplay is no different. The gameplay is no different.
The thing I love about Path of Exile, though, and I think it's the only action role-playing game that's actually done this, is you can conceptualize a character that you want in your mind and go, I want him to do this, I want to do that, and then you go and find, and you can actually do it. So the last character I played, and this is what really turned me on to Path of Exile, I was like, I want to do like a poison archer that's just like, raining down death everywhere. And I ended up finding all these skills and like gems and all sorts of things. I was like, oh my God, I can actually build the character that I actually want to build.
There's a whole channel that does just breaking the game stuff. I'll have to find it for you.
Oh, like the hectic synergies and stuff.
But to the point where like he can actually just make the game crash. or like he made a build, Paul, where you run up to the boss, hit him once and die. But then if you stay dead, the boss dies. Like you just wait, and it's that much trickling damage.
Oh, the dot damage.
Yeah, I've seen those.
So all he does is he walks in, and then he dies.
Who's the Chaos Occult girl in that game? I've seen things on YouTube where it's literally they just click a button and every mob on screen dies.
There's plenty of
builds. It's like they just melt.
Screen clearing.
You've just got one character just running through a dungeon and just things are just melting on screen. I'm like, what is this person actually doing? This doesn't.
My favorite way to play is Righteous Fire. The ability says when you turn this ability on, it's an aura, does X amount of fire damage in a circle, and you lose 80% of your life as fire damage per second. So how long do you think you last, right? Not very long. Except...
You last forever if it's 80% of your current life, or is it 80%
of
total
80% of your
max?
total.
Oh, okay, right.
So what you do is you just get enough fire resist and enough items with fire resist that you get to a point where your life will
Just
go
sort
to
of
1
hangs.
and stop.
Oh, okay.
But then when you build it right, like I think you need to be level whatever for everything to click.
Yep.
Is you'll actually heal life, so you can do it. And then because it's a
Constantly.
percentage of your life as damage, you
Yep.
start stacking your life up. But that's the point. You don't hit anything. You just run near them.
And there's full over.
That's how I love playing. But there's really no games like that where it's free to play. The talent tree and the like think of
It's just so
if you're
open.
gonna put in Flesh and Blood
To a fault,
terms,
actually.
Yes, yeah. It's too much for new players to even
I
comprehend.
think they're addressing it with PoE too. I
yeah,
think they'll
correct. They
nail it.
changed that system. Yeah, dude, we're on the same. I can't wait. I can't wait. We're gonna make a Flesh and Blood guild or clan
Flesh and
in
Blood
there.
Path of Exile.
But they.
We'll make Bravo in PoE too.
But it's a bit like if you think of Flesh and Blood, but it's got 10 million cards. And you can put any card in any deck.
It definitely has the same sort of
That's-
visual
that's what
aesthetic,
I-
doesn't it? As Flesh and Blood.
Well, I mean, I think that's what Flesh and Blood what it gets us with. So Magic's art style I like, but it's more you're not as personally attached. Like it feels like impersonal. But
I think
but,
you would-
But Flesh
I
and
think
Blood
a bit more in
100% is a
Commander.
role playing game.
Yeah.
It's a role playing game.
Yeah.
Get a hero, armor, and that's why PVE. This is a great transition to this. I'm so pumped for because
Yeah,
if they do
looking forward to
PVE with loot, if I can go to my armory, or even if Flesh and Blood do a way where I can farm loot in PvE, like farm cards.
Yeah.
Like whether it's get XP on a leaderboard and eventually I get something in the mail, or I can redeem it at my local where it's like a loot pack.
Yeah.
Because Warcraft TCG did that. And I
I was
opened
a
some
big
of them.
fan of the WoW TCG.
You got like a raid boss and you got a loot pack. And when you and your mates finish, like you bought it as a kit and you could open it. I want that at an armory level. I want to be able to go to an armory and someone hits like a gold foil, like Kadachi or something, because we killed the boss and it's just that 1 in 1,000 drop that everyone scream, like the nerd scream
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Because that could happen in a game store if you designed it right.
Absolutely.
Because the boss could be fun and engaging, and it's us versus the boss, not versus each other, which is a better bonding experience. Like to play together, you bring your wife or your kid, and it's less PvP, less spiky.
Yeah, you're working together.
But then you could hit $1,000 card.
Yeah.
That'd be insane.
I think it's actually kind of a gap in the market, actually. If you look at sort of most TCGs, most of them don't deal with PvE for a variety of reasons. I think it's actually quite tricky. But I think there's a sort of a gap in the market to have a good role-playing TCG.
Plenty have tried and plenty have failed.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a lot of faith that if LSS would have taken down the path, including like, narrative campaigns and stuff, you sort of head
They
down.
have confirmed it.
I know. They've confirmed PvE, but that's all they've confirmed. They haven't
No,
confirmed.
they have confirmed something else.
What's that?
The official James White in an interview said you'll be able to pick up the game a month later. It sounds like Dungeons and Dragons.
So
What
there
do you
could be
mean?
some
What-
campaigns
what-
there. Oh, interesting. That'd be awesome.
So you can start and then stop and then...
Like you can play the game, like continue where you were with your
so
friends.
awesome.
Yes.
I'd be so into
Which,
that.
by the way, if they do it that way, where it's a global campaign, like the first 2 months of the
Yeah, it changes
campaign
the story.
is this month, right?
Yeah.
And you get 2 months to eventually clear it and finish and see everything you were going to see in the campaign and discover the lore or whatever, however they design it. And then they go month 2.
Yeah.
Then people that are new to the game might be able to just go back, but everyone else is like, you're waiting a month or whatever for the next release.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
So that's actually really interesting. So there's another game that I've been getting into. So actually, card games aren't really my true love. My true love is actually in tabletop miniatures games. Like I said, I'm a bit of a nerd.
I'm OG, baby. How
I
far do you
love
go
it.
back?
Yeah, I love it. But there's a new game that's come out relatively recently called Conquest by Parabellum Games. I think they're in the US, but I could be wrong. But the cool thing about that is they have a feature with this game called The Living World. And The Living World is actually, you can go, there's this map, and you can actually record stuff, sort of how you're going with your games, and that actually drives the storyline for the game moving forward. So if LSS were to do something like that, with sort of like a globally led campaign using the gem system, then you've got some really cool stuff
That's
happening.
my hope. Is it's gem based, it's XP. You register. You hopefully even play it at the local.
Yeah.
And you can't just play it at home with your friends. Like they can do that as a kit, but what I want to be able to do is the shop owner has an envelope from LSS. It's the monthly campaign rewards, and you go play with your friends. You get XP. You maybe start your level 1 Dory with a crappy sword, and no, but like 5 years later, it's all gold foil PVE equipment. That
that'd be
some of
sick.
it you can take to a tournament, and people like the only way to get that is by grinding PVE. Like you can win gold foils at tournaments, and you can win stuff in PVE, which World of Warcraft did amazingly well. Like you'd have your raid gear, but then like the PvP gladiator gear stood out.
Yeah.
And you could still cross over and do other content. But
Two things. It's going to be hard to manage and it's going to be hard to execute because it could be fraught with cheating, let's be honest, or people cheating the system. But I do have faith in it because if people like me are interested in that, I think that's half the thing. Like, I hate Commander. I hate that. I absolutely despise it for a variety of reasons, so I'm not going to get into now.
Yep.
I think it's like when I see people playing Commander in Magic, it makes me depressed. Like, I literally think it's like, oh my gosh, what has Magic come to?
Yep.
It's like you've got a Lamborghini that's like sitting on, training wheels. I just don't like seeing the game play that way. Not at all. It's like a board game, right? And if I want to play a board game, I'll play a board game. I won't play Magic. It's like a Magic version of a board game. Anyway, nothing against people who enjoy it. Millions of people enjoy Commander. I just don't like it. So I really got convinced that I thought that, this isn't a multiplayer PvP. That's why I don't like UPF. Like, to be fair, not interested.
Oh, it's too easy to swing the game.
Yeah, it'll never be for me. But
I played against LSS Crew on that, and they just destroyed me. And after when I realized that what they're doing, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of crap."
I just think, like, for people, there are people out there that don't like multiplayer and stuff like that. But I think PvE, if it's executed well, I think those people get on board. Like, I've had a lot of conversations with people, and I've heard people talk about it, and I'm very intrigued. Very intrigued.
The reason, like what we were talking about, we're clearly like there's like a childlike thing when you talk to me about Diablo, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
Me too.
I remember not being
That's why I
allowed
was so
to buy the
disappointed with
game because it
Immortal.
had a freaking hexagon on the front, like devil worship. Like, my parents wouldn't
Yeah.
even let us buy it.
Do you remember the Butcher?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first saw
yeah.
the Butcher in Diablo 1, it scared the living
Yeah.
crap out
What
of
was
me.
that? What was the elite armor called? Whale armor or something in Diablo 1? And
Oh, Godly Plate of the Whale.
Yeah, Godly Play of the Whale.
But-
and when all people knew how to dupe items.
Yeah, I remember duping some of them.
Duping items on Battle.net, or how there was a special thing you do. God.
That's why it's exciting. Is
Just duping.
Fab has Fab has that ability. Like, you pick a hero. Like, the PvE campaign could be 4 heroes we've never played before. Like, they can take it whatever route they want. You go, there's 4 decks, and it's 4 of you can play that campaign, and you pick the decks, and it's a new hero with stuff you haven't. Like, they can do it that way.
You might not even bring your own deck. You might
But
have
the mechanics,
to purchase.
correct? But the mechanics already lead themselves into it. It's already. I have a board where I can have armor. That's the whole point. Is you have armor and a weapon.
I think deck building will be in place for PvE, for sure.
I agree, but I'm saying it could be different rules. Maybe you have to start with commons and then you have to build up.
Yes.
Maybe only level 3 characters can have. And yeah, people will cheat if there's rewards and stuff, but it's not the point. It's still, at the end of the day, you shouldn't play for the rewards. And PvE it'll be casual. Wouldn't ever be the like right now when I win an armory, I give the shit away. Like, unless I really want the playmat, the new player's getting what I, you know what I mean? Like, I'm there to play the game, not to win. So it's not how I.
Our tall friend though is very accurate in the sense that it's too easy to game if you have sort of rewards based on the PvE system.
Sure.
So I think that would be tricky, but it'd still be interesting to have events at the OGS, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I just want to. It's also it's the very soft entry point. If you're in the shop and there's a commander group going and they're not doing anything after, and the PvE is firing, way easier to convince them to do that than come verse me one-on-one to the death. They don't want to do that. Like, Fab's a little bit like, you can learn Fab quickly if you already play Magic, but it's pretty punishing because the mechanics.
It's
are
a
so
highly
different.
competitive game with a very high skill ceiling.
Yeah.
And that's why the range of skill is just
Like,
so
I play
different.
Dory. I'll never lose to a new player on their like, it's impossible. They will definitely make mistakes and I will win. Doesn't matter how high they high roll. It doesn't matter because they'll mess up. They'll forget something, or they just won't know what my cards do. But the PvE aspect of that would be sick. In the same vein, is it's still me on my warrior swinging a weapon, doing stuff as a character, not as a deck. And that's not going to feel like a board game. It's going to feel like, I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but I imagine it feels more like that, but with that physical, tangible, like, I built this deck. This is what my hero does. And that's where maybe all these clerics and alchemists and whatever they've put in the lore book will come. It's like, you'll need a healer and you'll need a tank. You can't just...
Potentially.
Not necessarily. I hope so.
Yeah,
I
me
hope
too.
so.
Me too. Because it means that it sort of opens up another avenue for card rulings and stuff as well. So if you have a
Yes.
cleric that's doing healing and stuff, which is really only necessary or useful in a PvE context, particularly depending on the ruling. So
Yeah.
if the cleric has a card that's like, heal on a friend or whatever of the party that doesn't work on you, then it's only for PvE.
Yeah.
You can't pull it into PvP or potentially UPF as well, actually. But
How'd you first hear about Flesh and Blood? Or where? But yeah.
Top Ride Good Games had an
okay.
ad on their page. I just saw the artwork. I was like, whoa, what is this? This looks awesome. It was dark. It looked gritty. I think the first piece of art I saw was Razor Reflex and in the banner, and they
Yeah.
posted a photo of Reiner as well. I was like, oh, this looks cool. I didn't get drawn to Reiner whatsoever. As soon as I learned the randomness, I was like, nope.
There's a dice runner.
yeah, I was like, nope, not a game like this. I played Dory, so yeah.
And that was in 2019.
Yeah, that was late October 2019, because I think it launched October 2019, sort of start of the month, October 3rd, I want to say. So I learnt about it late October, and then by mid-November I had FabDB ready to go. So
Wow.
Yeah.
So where did that spark that you got into a game and then a month later you're launching a website on the game?
that's just what I do.
Right, okay.
My friends have joked me a number of times, like if I get heavily into something, the first thing I do is build a website.
Yeah, but also it's a gap, right? It's not that that wouldn't have existed.
Yeah, there was no collection manager. There
Now
was no
there's
card
like
browsing.
one or two competitors, inverted commas, but it's not.
They're not really.
That's what I mean. Like there was nothing for deck building, collection with nothing.
The only other website out there that sort of offers any sort of competitiveness, they're just way too slow on updating things. Like they still don't have Uprising in there, for example, and that's always the case with the new set releases. And I'm not hating on them. They're probably very busy. Maybe they're doing university or they've got work stuff on. So
Yep.
totally understand why that is the case. But to my knowledge, outside of them, there's no other
Yep.
sort of deck builder. But in regards to other things, there's obviously heaps of competitors for content. There's heaps of competitors for analysis and that sort of stuff. Or at least there's growing competitors for analysis. There's at least 4 or 5 websites for sort of card and deck analysis.
The
so-
only another site I used to get deck lists from is Fab Dojo.
Yes. Yeah. And that's all manually inputted, unfortunately.
Yeah, but
which means the quality is quite high for what they're getting, but it's a lot of work.
Well,
And Tekla Labs is meant to do that all automatically.
They contact every LGS that runs an event, going, "Hey,
Yeah.
can we?" Like they have man that it seems crazy that it's not
Yeah.
automatic.
Yeah, so excuse me. I've got a lingering cough from like a thing I had a few weeks ago. I've reached out to them once before. This is before Tekla Labs was launched, and I asked them if there was, if there's something we could do for a partnership. And actually, you've just reminded me that I meant to get back to them because I haven't done that since. But I think there's actually a really good partnership thing there. So if they're able to help me out with data, I can help them with reports, potentially even reports that are only accessible by them, and then they can put basically their reports together for all this, because they do some really in-depth analysis, which I don't know if Tekla Labs can actually do automatically. So
Yep.
that human input's
that
necessary.
data sharing would be great. Again, all this stuff is good for the community in general.
Yeah.
The more data LSS gives you, the more data we can funnel from LGSs. It's if it's all aggregated or shared, it just helps.
Yes.
Like, it's all stats. The problem is we don't have a digital client. Otherwise, this would be easy. But this will never have a digital client.
But it'd be good if if we can just access Gem. If I
Yeah.
can access Gem, I've got everything. I've got everything I need.
What have they said? No.
It's not that it's no. I just don't think it's a very high priority for them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things going on. So I suspect they will probably get to a point where you can access that through an API system. But yeah, who knows?
But it's the only proper way to build these tools correctly is having that API.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to LS's credit, there's a lot of other games out there that build sort of their own tooling for this sort of stuff. Like they build their own deck builders and all sorts of things. I think Grand Archive TCG, which Red Zone Rogue talks about a bit, which I've backed as well. I like it because it's sort of a weeb sort of setup, but the rules of it are actually quite cool. So I'm interested in that. But they've already built sort of like a card browser and a deck manager and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, I think that's actually a really big mistake on the company's perspective, because once you do that, you're actually, even if you do a good job, you're actually removing the capability from the community. But also, too, you're spending money that the community could be doing for you for free.
Well, that's it. It's modding.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Should let the community mod. Usually they come up with some because there's usually more passion, because the only way you do it for free is if you want to.
Yeah,
While
super
your
passionate.
employee building that tool is building it to a work standard, not a passion
And,
project standard.
Even though I don't despise it, Commander, that was birthed from the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. I believe it was a bunch of judges that used to play it.
Yeah.
When they all got around, they just played multiplayer games and, developed this Commander system. And that's where it was all birthed from.
Yep.
But it was all from the community. And then obviously Hasbro got their greedy
So
little
that's a really
hands on
interesting
it.
point, actually. So I'm actually working on a format for Flesh and Blood, which I'm I'll release soon.
Yeah?
Yeah. We'll
A format?
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
We'll do a release on the channel. You just
I'll do
we'll do a
playtesting.
game
Can we
play.
just get a
No,
little?
that's
Can
what
we
I
get a
mean.
little?
Not yet.
Not even a.
What I'm saying is, if you want to do a gameplay reveal, hit me up.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll record because I've been recording some gameplay. We just recorded some for LSS main website.
Yep.
Awesome.
What-
We'd love
fantastic.
to.
What makes you excited about this format?
It's just a very different way of playing Flesh and Blood.
Okay, cool.
Not better or worse or anything like that, just different. And it moves away considerably from sort of constructed and blitz formats. I will say that in the way you deck build and the way you play the cards.
Did you come up with the idea?
Yeah.
Awesome. When's the last time you played a game of Flesh and Blood?
At the calling event.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I played. I didn't do well as expected, but I wasn't there to win, so I was just there to have fun. I think I played about 3 or 4 games and 1-0. So.
Did you play with my decks or you had something else?
No, I played in the draft.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
And that was it. And it was awesome. Opening up the cards and stuff. I think Uprising is probably the most gorgeous set released to date. I think it's just stunning. And I just had a lot of fun. All my games, unfortunately, were just so close. I just couldn't quite close them.
That's the good part about Fab. Like, usually your life totals are not that far. Right? Even when you're very new, you get your damage in, you get your licks in.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
but before then, I hadn't played since Cruise, so it'd been a long time.
That is a long time.
Yeah.
So, personally, what's keeping you busy? We were talking about we're all dads. It's the first time we've had 3 dads on the channel.
Yeah, that's right.
And only 2 dad bods. He was
That's right.
And only 2 of us have had the snip.
Well, yeah. But you let the audience guess.
Yeah. Guess which 2? Too funny.
Don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, outside of work, work takes up sort of 8-9 hours a day, and then it's Lexi time. So when I get to hang out with Lexi, and by the way, she's not. It was not inspired by Lexi, the room blade, the ranger. Sorry. In fact, when James found out that my girl's called Lexi, he reached out. He's like, "Did you know?" And this is before anything else. He just, "Do you know we've got a hero coming out called Lexi?" I was like, "Bullshit." He's like, "So interesting timing." So. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so Lexi, and then basically once Lexi's asleep, then I get to do my thing. So, and my thing is either gaming, but the problem with me gaming these days is every single time I start gaming, I just feel guilty, and that's any gaming. Like and it's not just video games. It's like if I'm playing card games or miniature games, I have to get into the game, get it done quickly, and then get back to whatever it is I'm doing. So, productivity and creativity just is always sort of surging up with me. So I have always all these ideas. I've got like ideas for like the developer world that I want to build. So if I could get like a team of like 20 engineers and it's like you're working on this, you're working on this, you're working on this, that would be the ideal.
Have you always had that in you? That creativity?
Yes, but not the execution aspect. So being able to execute successfully really only started with FabDB. That's what I was like, actually, I can actually do really cool creative...
I mean, it's a business.
Yeah, productive things here. But it's not just that. It's like, before FabDB, I'd create these projects, but I'd always sort of quit sort of halfway. Like, I wouldn't really see through the execution to completion. And something changed with FabDB.
What changed? What?
I don't really know. I think it's the satisfaction of all that hard work that's kind of... And I'm not talking about like making money aspect. It's just like... seeing tens of thousands of people use the thing that you've built and using it well and having no issues, there's a certain pride that comes along with that, and not in a bad way. Just like, oh, look, I can do these cool things. What else can I do?
So the positive feedback inspired you to keep going, not giving up.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I saw an opportunity for Rough Times when it launched. It was like one of the only 2 websites really doing serious content. The other one being Channel Fireball. There's other ones, but I still don't think anyone pushes out as much sort of written content as Rough Times. Channel Fireball's close. That they do, I think, maybe 2 articles a week, maybe more on their paid service, but I haven't seen that. But we push at a minimum 3, sometimes 4 articles a week, and we want to go higher. So, but that really comes down to Alex as well. Shout out to Alex, because Alex is the editor, and without him, the content doesn't go anywhere. So it's really important.
Who's Alex? Where are they based?
Yeah, Alex Truel is based on the east coast of the US, which pretty much all of my partners are from. I don't know why that is the case, but that just is the case. And he basically just ensures that all the content is up to par. And he's an awesome author himself as well. He writes now for LSS as well, some of their stuff, doing some coverage because he's an awesome writer. So, so FabDB sort of kicked off the energy and drive and desire to kind of just build things. And then Rough Times here, and then Tech Labs in the back of my mind for ages. This game I'm developing has been sort of in game design documents for probably the last 10, 15 years, tweaking and changing slowly. But it's getting to the point now where I'm like, I actually really want to execute on this and get it done. So, and then, like I said, there's this application idea I have for developers that I want to build, but it's just not enough time. So whenever
Plus your day job?
Plus my day job. So whenever I have time and I'm gaming, after a while, Listen's like, you should be working on this, and then I have to stop gaming and get back to it. So
We've got to get you in a Fab armory at some point.
I will for sure.
Yeah.
It's all about time. But like I said, whenever I'm wanting to game, if I have time, it's tabletop, miniature
Yep.
games. So at the moment, that's Conquest. And then there's another game coming out called Rivenstone, which I'm super... In fact, I was so excited about that one, like Flesh and Blood, that within 2 weeks of me backing the project, I had an app ready to go for building armies.
Where do you play your tabletop games?
Top right.
Oh, you play there?
Yep.
Okay, in the back there? Nice.
Yeah, they're one of the few good games actually that actually have proper support for tabletop games. Good Games in the City actually is quite good as well at Town Hall.
Are you looking forward to the true rank and file Warhammer reboot that they announced a few years ago?
I don't know. Games Workshop has let me down so much.
Oh, yeah,
in
they're
recent years.
terrible.
Their miniatures are amazing. They're easily top tier sort of miniature quality. The lore is incredible, but the game systems are just so dated. I was really excited about one. They released one called...
Do you like rank and file though?
That's what Conquest is.
Oh, okay.
So Conquest is rank and file troops. You sport anywhere between sort of 80 to 120 miniatures on the table. So it's sort of along the same lines as fantasy. But I've played 40k 8th and 9th edition recently. I played Kill Team 1 and 2. I played Warcry. I played Age of Sigmar. And of all those games...
What do you think of Age of Sigmar? I had a dabble in it. I thought it was a bit of a...
It's beer and pretzels. Meaning,
at best.
Yeah, it's like you roll a dice, you hope for the best, and that's all Games Workshop games. But I really thought they were going to do something special with Warcry. So for those not sort of aware of it, Warcry is a tabletop skirmish game where you play with about sort of 10 to 15 miniatures. And it was just too simple. Like, it was so simplified that I just couldn't get into it. And then I played, Kill Team 2. Oh man, that one pissed me off. The way they did the measurement system was just... It was just awful. I couldn't get about. And so basically after that, I just sort of cut ties with
What
Games
about
Workshop.
Kings of War? Did you ever try that game?
I was going to play that, and I bought an army for it, and then Conquest came out. I found out about Conquest, I'm like, oh, bye-bye Kings of War.
I heard it's good. I heard Kings of War is
Yes,
good.
yeah. I'd say it's probably the most popular rank and file game in the world at the moment. Yeah, I mean, it looks awesome. It's quite simple, I think, as terms of game mechanics go, but... yeah, it seems like an awesome.
Do you enjoy the painting aspect of the hobby or just the
Ooh,
playing? Okay.
Yeah. That's my quiet time.
Because that's what
Have
I
a
could
whiskey,
imagine if
do
you're
some painting.
Yeah, if you're really in the programming in the computer world, that'd be a good therapeutic.
Yeah, it's the only way I can actually shut my brain off.
Yeah.
That's the only way. So if I sit down and sort of paint for an hour and a half, by the time I go to bed, I am just dead.
That's awesome.
Really, yeah. But if I've been programming all night, I go to bed and then I'm up for another hour just thinking about stuff. So
I bet.
yeah, I love my painting. It's really therapeutic. And I'm relatively good at it too. So you get a lot of compliments and stuff from people from my armies and that sort of thing. So the problem is I spend so much time on them that, a lot of people just kind of smash it out, get the army done. But for me, I look at mistakes and I'm like, ugh.
So you're a perfectionist, just like your projects, your programs?
To a point. No, I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist. I'm a 90% guy.
Okay.
So I get to
but you got a
90%.
high standard
Yes.
of yourself and
Yep.
others that, do stuff you.
I have a higher standard of expectation of others than I do of myself, unfortunately. But when it comes to like painting and sort of the work that I do, pretty high standard. So
Yeah, I never got into Warhammer. It's fascinating, but just it seemed like it would require more time than I had.
That was my first love.
yeah, mine
My
too.
first...
Second edition.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, you go back further than me.
Yeah, early 90s.
Yeah, it would have been.
93 or 94. I think.
got in when 4th edition just launched.
Yep.
So that was the same. I was in year 2
Oh wow.
and I'm 37.
You started early.
Yeah, but that was 4th edition just launched. I was
Yep.
in year 2 because my neighbour, he was in year 5 or year 6 and he got given the battle box when it dropped for Christmas and it was the High Elves Goblins battle box.
Oh, fantasy, not I was talking about 40k.
Oh, no, fantasy. I never really played
fantasy was
40K.
before 40. Oh no, actually no, it wasn't. 40k was before fantasy.
Correct, but I think the editions were the other way around.
Correct.
Yeah.
I used to buy White Dwarf to read on the plane, though.
Oh,
I used to love them.
Like, that's the
Love
crazy
them.
thing, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting even if you don't play it. So
Yeah.
much detail and
Oh,
It
It
lore
was.
and
Those magazines back in the day, the quality that went into them,
The photography,
the photography, the articles, like those things.
If you ever get an opportunity, go to Warhammer World in the UK. Like that, it will just blow your mind.
Really?
So for those who are not aware, be interested to know who may don't know about Games Workshop, but they publish a bunch of games. One's called Warhammer, and they have this huge, basically like I call it a museum called Warhammer World. And Warhammer World, you can play heaps of games there, you can buy products, but they have this whole museum section where you just like go through and see all these painted minis from right back since day one. But on top of that, they have all these massive dioramas of like hundreds and thousands of miniatures, like fighting these epic battles.
Is that in London or?
No, that's in what's it called? Not Liverpool. No.
Newcastle?
No. I can't remember what it's called.
Okay.
But anyway, if you ever get to the UK, you've got to see it.
Will do. Hamish,
I'd
take me there, mate. Take me there, Hamish.
I spoke to Hamish just before this. We had a good old chat. Funny guy.
And they've got a miniatures club. Hamish runs one wherever he's from.
Where?
I
don't know who Hamish is.
Push the Point, the UK podcast.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Push the Point was the one I was thinking of before.
Okay.
That's all.
There you go. That's right. Yes, you've had you've got a video there.
Yeah. Or podcast at least anyway.
Yeah.
So do you plan to maybe travel to Worlds or any of these big landmark Fab events or?
I'd like to, particularly, especially Worlds, but it's unlikely, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But maybe in a couple of years when Lex is a bit older, might be able to do that. That'd be pretty cool. Just getting the time to go to the calling in Sydney was tricky because I'm leaving, my girl with my wife for the next few days over a weekend. It's just like. It's a lot of hard work raising your kids by yourself.
Yeah, most definitely.
So it's good. But yeah, so like I was saying, I built that app for Rivenstone pretty much straight away. So I think once Rivenstone's out, I can't see myself playing anything else for quite some time.
This is tabletop?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So tabletop skirmish game, and it's got an aesthetic that's a little bit like World of Warcraft in terms of the models and stuff. So it's gonna have a lot of broad appeal.
Kickstarter project?
Awesome. Yep. I went all in. It was like 900 USD for like everything. And I'm looking at like the shipping bill now because the Kickstarter's changed. I was like, oh God, what have I done?
Did you look at the sorcery at all from New Zealand?
Yeah, back that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I won't back sorcery beyond first set. That'll be it for me.
Neither. Yeah. I want to get...
artwork is incredible.
That's why. And none of it's digital. It's another Kiwi company. Like the more gaming money on this
the guy that
side
built
of
it is
the
actually from Path of Exile.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And I bought a store
Eric,
kit.
I think. Yep.
I bought
mad.
I bought a whole store kit to split between two shops.
Yep.
Enough cases to open on the channel.
Yeah, man.
Enough play mats, but it's a board game. I just want to have.
I was
it to
so
play.
pissed off with that launch there because they launched during US hours. I think it was like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. I was like, "You're from New Zealand." I couldn't get like the
They were all sold out. All the good ones sold out straight away.
And I woke up at like 8 a.m. for that. I'd never wake up at a.m. It's like 9:30, 10 because I work late.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. That's right. No, you're up at like 2 in the morning.
Yeah, I think you sent me a message. I was like, "What are you doing up?"
Because it says I'll go on Facebook.
Oh, when you're overseas.
Yeah. It says, no, I'm up. I sometimes will put in an all night. I mean, I live a very fucking boring life, so an all nighter on coffee and working.
I
is
live
fine.
a boring life. I try to get to sleep by 9:30 if I can.
You wake up at like 4.
Not that early, but close.
4:30.
Close. Very close.
Only time I used to wake up at 4:30 is when I was moved to the UK and I still worked for the same company in Sydney, and so I was up really early. It was either that or surfing. And I get up at 4:30, be out in the surf by 5:30 in the morning.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was good fun.
And if you were to come to an armory with us, what hero would you play?
I'd actually really like to play Bolton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I love Warriors. The Warriors are always like almost my go-to in every game I play. So I just love Dorinthia. I think she's awesome. But Bolton, I don't know. There's something about him just being like this whirling dervish with his 2 axes. I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Sweet.
Yeah. He needs a bit of support.
I
mean, he's fun to play, just not nearly as strong as he should be.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think. I don't really know much about sort of the Monarch meta, but did you have sort of any success with sort of attack action cards as a build? Because I tried to do that with Dorinthia early days and it didn't quite work out. But he has sort of certain synergies with attack action cards. So.
it's mainly attack actions with Bolton.
Okay, so
because they're the only cards that enable him to charge.
Yeah, and then the
course.
weapons are like the finisher.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
you're pretty much attacking,
just
charging
chip damage
your soul,
when you can,
but mainly to charge. And then when you charge enough and you have the right combo pieces, you go off with the weapons like 10 times. And
You're pretty much,
Mad,
there's
okay.
2 ways to play Bolton. You're either playing Well, maybe there's an Axis build out there, but generally speaking, people are either playing the Sabres combo, so you're building up your soul, and then when you hit your combo pieces, your Luminas, you're just going off, you're cracking your courage, and you're attacking with each Sabre 3 or 4 times.
Yep.
The other way to play is with Raiden, and that's just a go wide deck.
Yep.
And you're using your soul to activate Bolton's ability to keep giving all your attacks go again.
Oh, man, okay.
So you can give attacks go again that don't have a natural go again, basically.
Oh, man, yep.
But you've got other decks like Briar and now Fire that are just better at it. Way better at going wide.
Yeah.
You know, they're not as fragile. So, but Bolton's going to need a few key cards to really either cement itself as a... It's almost like he doesn't have an identity. It's like, which way does LSS want Bolton to go?
Yeah.
If they want it to go wide, then they're going to have to print certain cards. Or if they want it to be a true warrior combo deck, then they're going to have to... Anyway, I don't know which way they're going to go with Bolton.
Well, the thing is, like, from a high-level perspective, they've released one Light and Shadows set. That's the main part.
Yeah.
So, so you got characters...
And they may not come back to it for a while.
Well, Chain is a shadow, but doesn't rely as heavily on shadow cards.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
While Bolton's whole thing is charging, and you
with light cards,
right?
Yeah.
Same. So Prism, just the uniqueness of her, and there's only one illusionist, or was for a while. She was already strong. She hasn't needed a lot of support.
Yeah.
And the Everfest auras were just enough to make her have 2 different builds now, an aura build and a... But Bolton can't just run generic warrior cards. It just doesn't synergize. You need that synergy.
Yep.
But my point is, then Tails came out, but then Uprising also has some ice and elemental cards. So a lot of heroes, like Bolton and Levia are the 2 heroes that have had probably the least support in the more recent. Because Dory's a generic warrior, so all the generic warrior stuff helps. You can run E-Strike in that deck, you run Command, it doesn't matter. Bolton really needs light cards to charge, and there's only one set worth. So he's like, I think if you even FabDB could tell you, if you looked at like the accessible card pool,
for light
it's
warrior,
much smaller.
Yeah, it's very
than most other characters. Levia has the same problem. The success people are seeing with Levia now is like basically a no blood debt Levia. So they're not even building her.
Oh, right.
Because a lot of generic brute stuff came out, but not enough Shadow Brute stuff came out to like synergize. Because Levia needs to turn off blood debt, and if you don't have enough cards,
that's hurting yourself.
You just end up dying, fizzling out and dying. I think Bolton's...
The price you pay.
Bolton's definitely only one set away. And by the way, my guess is November. When's the new set?
And I think they're going to lead...
It seems like this will be a light shadow.
I have a feeling they're going to lead into Raiden over Sabres.
Because Raiden's his weapon.
Yeah,
anyway,
and Sabres literally is only a thing because of courage.
Yeah.
Like without courage chess piece, there is no Sabres combo.
Yeah, right.
Like Lumina is still a powerful card in a Raiden build. Like hitting twice with Raiden and gaining life is very good.
Yeah.
Let's see what he's like at the moment, actually. I want to see how he...
You're checking Teklo?
Yeah.
Oh.
So,
well, fun fact, Kirk.
Yes.
Bolton had the highest day 2 conversion rate at the Pro Tour.
Oh, really?
Wasn't that many people playing the deck?
Yeah.
There wasn't
the people that did play it.
Yep.
As a percentage.
Yeah, percentage. So just saying, as a percentage, it had the highest day 2 conversion rate. I believe there was I could probably look it up, but there was somewhere between 7 to 10 players playing Bolton, and it had the highest day 2 conversion rate.
Was that
at the Pro Tour.
100%?
No, I think it was about 75%.
Yeah, he's still ranked pretty lowly, actually.
But again, there's also the argument that not many people at all play Bolton.
Yeah. So that's the thing with me. Like when I play card games, I tend to like much spicier decks, things that come out of nowhere. And I remember when I first played, when Push the Point came out, was it Crucible? And I immediately saw the effect it could have with Drinthia if she can hit with a blade, or even as sort of a last attack. And I remember throwing it down a few times. I think one against Hayden and one against someone else. And they're like, oh. So you're getting 6 damage off for 1, if you can get it. So it was a lot of fun. So I like that sort of stuff.
Spice.
Yeah, spicy decks.
I don't
Not necessarily good, but
funnily enough, I don't think you can succeed at any game without something unique. Like,
yes.
You can't just copy Like you can't. Like the
Well,
people
that does happen.
no. But that's
It's
not
harder
enough.
to do in Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, but it's not
than, say,
enough.
Magic.
Like that's
It's
the
a lot
point.
harder.
So if you know, Icelander went on a tear before Uprising because people you didn't know what's in her deck, so
Yep.
you'd go Arcane Barrier, and then she'll go with all these attack actions that you have no way of blocking, like E-Strike for 7. You're like,
Yeah.
huh? and that's important, I think. Same as like Dory. Every time I see like a very high, like a Dory win a progress, I go look at the deck, and it's always not like mine.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's some building blocks, but then you're like, oh,
It's
this
gone in a
person
slightly
went like
different direction
front heavy Dory, not reaction heavy Dory. Because obviously people play around the reaction. So this person went, I'm going to put all the front heavy damage,
Yeah.
hold
Go tall Dory.
a useless card in my hand, and they're going to think it's a pump and it's a potion. Like,
Yeah.
But you can do that when everyone else does something else.
Yeah.
And the whole Arsenal Pass crew did that for the Pro Tour. They never talked about Kano, and then all turned up with Kano.
Yeah.
And they all day 2'd, and one of them top 8'd on
Yeah.
Kano.
Yeah.
There was no...
And it became the main talking point.
Well, their friends that they train with internationally came up to me, and they're like, man, we had no idea. Like, they never
Oh, really?
told us. Like, they felt cheated. Like, they're like, we've been testing. We tested our best decks.
That's
and
really
then you
fun.
guys, like, they never brought out Kano.
Yeah.
This is what I like most about Flesh and Blood is you can net deck, but you can't. Not Magic. It's just the way the game's built. So,
And
for
if the
example,
person that made the deck doesn't tell you why they put the card in or
Exactly.
when to play it,
It's-
and we were like sideboard, you have no idea how to play
exactly
the deck.
because it's pre-board. You sideboard before the game. So in FabDB, it doesn't tell you that. Sometimes you don't even know which cards are sideboards, which cards aren't. If they
Unless
haven't-
the
if they
person
haven't-
did it, yeah.
Unless the
Yeah.
person did it, and then even if they did it, like I said, they're pre-boarding, so you don't know what the core of the deck is or what matchups they're bringing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's really good because it leads to more innovation, but B, it allows the real thought leaders in the community that are very good at brewing up decks.
Yep.
It allows them to, if they wanted to, make content or whether they want to monetize it to talk people through that because it's not a...
Which some people do, like Drew. Drew Cordell
Yeah.
basically monetizes his deck tech for a lot of his Guardian builds and stuff.
It's not an autopilot like Magic. It's very easy to get a list off Goldfish or something, and you can just see the sideboard and see what's going on. It's quite easy to work out. Where Fab, I think it's a little bit harder than net deck.
Yeah. One thing about that, though, is there's a lot of players actually asking for either multiple sideboards or the ability to show on FabDB what cards are being sideboarded versus either certain heroes or certain classes.
That'd be great.
Yeah. It's hard to do that.
Sure, yeah.
Get it going. But yeah, it's definitely on the roadmap there. So
Oh, really? You're going to
so
include
watch
that
for
feature?
it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because that's like
Wow.
if you were going to teach me...
Oh, the
if you're gonna
Timmys
use
will
it-
love you, Kirk. The Timmys will love you.
Like I Hayden gave me his Prism list to play at a ProQuest, and then he had to literally write me a block of text with play this against that, like this in, this out, this in, this out, this in, this out. It's quite lengthy and
Yeah,
complicated.
you got to know what you're doing.
Well, there was someone at the call-in in New Jersey. I don't know the person. I was just walking the tables, looking around. They had a tablet with a spreadsheet.
Yes.
Like literally with
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
tabulated spreadsheet at the start of the game. They saw the hero and they're just
Scroll
looking at
down,
the spreadsheet.
yep.
Okay, I need to put that card in, that card out,
wow.
that card in, that card out. Yeah, like a full-on, iPad tablet.
By the way, that person, that deck. If it was your deck, you don't need it.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's fine though. Like
He had a full-on spreadsheet matrix of like all the heroes, everything.
It is really interesting how the sort of top players. So you're talking before about how Hayden and those boys basically like kept that secret tech away from everybody. I remember playing against Sasha Markovic before the calling in 2020, which is honestly one of the most favorite events I've ever been to. One, because I got to meet all these amazing people. Two,
Sorry, where was that calling?
in Auckland.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I went over there just before COVID hit, and then my wife and I went to Waiheke Island, just off of Auckland. So it was a gorgeous day. Anyway, I played Sasha. I'm pretty sure he was playing Ninja that day as well, and he absolutely just destroyed me without even trying. But I remember him talking about. He gave me like heaps of good advice stuff afterwards. So I should have been doing this, blah blah blah, which is great. But I remember him reading his article about his Ninja that won that, and how after seeing what everybody was playing the day beforehand at the Battle Hardened event,
He
basically
changed.
went and changed I think like 25 cards out of his deck. So it's got to do this, and ended up winning. So he just knew. He just knew what he had to do.
And was that like classic constructed?
Classic constructed, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Easily my favorite format. Like I'm not as big a fan of it.
Katsu, was it?
Yeah, Katsu, yeah. Katsu with it was one of the defensive builds, and also Roy was working with a deck like that at the same time as well, so it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So just really heavy defense reactions and just Kadachi.
Yeah, there was a meta with Ninja.
That's why Warrior was so difficult because everyone's got defensive reactions.
You can't play around them on Warrior.
You just can't. So it was either go tall or try and go wide with Dory.
The meta now,
yeah.
because Starvo just LL'd,
Yeah.
no defense reactions. It's great with Dory. You're just having a field day.
Yeah.
Because, yes, some decks have D-reacts, but most of them don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
D-reacts, like when Fire's going 12 chain links
What
deep.
for? Yeah.
It's kind of like,
Well, no.
why do you want
By
a
the way,
defense reaction when they're going 12?
You have to put in, is that all you got? That you have to now in every deck. It's that yellow D-react, blocks 3, but if it blocks 2 or less attack, you draw a card when the blocks are done.
Oh, that
shit.
new card, yeah.
Yeah. But because
that card's so good.
because
Is
of
that
the
all you
meta,
got? Love it.
because of the meta, you just have that in in your sideboard. You go any
Uprising's-
ninja, you put it in. It's
Uprising-
literally it
block one
replaces
and then
itself.
pull
It
two.
replaces
Oh,
itself.
that's phenomenal.
The generic Majestics in Uprising are
Nuts.
really good.
They finally
Really
did it,
good.
right? People. I love.
I haven't even bought Uprising yet. It's the first that I actually haven't invested into the.
I'll give you a box on the way up.
No, it's okay. I'm not asking for one. But I'm just like, it's unfortunate because the reason I haven't is just because I just know I'm not going to get to it. Like I've bought so many cards and stuff in the last year. It's just not going anywhere, unfortunately. For me personally.
Look, you can't do everything.
No.
Funnily enough, this is like the same exact conversation you have with people that talk about the price of the game. Like, man, if you're worried about the price of cards, stop playing.
Yeah.
Like, go.
The thing is, I really want to buy
Go
Uprising.
hustle.
That's the problem.
No, so for you, it's definitely not a money thing. It's like, if I don't have time, why would I buy it? And
Yeah, I
it's
just don't have the time,
completely
yeah.
fine. Like, if you're living a productive life, you're not like stoned out of your head sitting on the couch, don't have time. Like, you're actually productive. Like,
Can't be both.
I was
Stoned and programming.
I made the joke on purpose. All right?
don't like Kirk. I'm sure you've been there. But,
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's
Not
it's
anymore.
Just, if
Years
you don't
ago.
have time, don't play. You should not complain. Like, oh, it takes too long. There's no. This is just a game. Just a game. You don't have
Yeah.
to spend money. You don't have to spend
Like,
time. If you,
I do want the dragons though. I want all the dragons. They're
so
gorgeous.
good. I have a full dude. I have a max
No-
rarity Dromai. Like the black Ashwings. I have 10 now.
Oh, lovely. So nice.
Yeah, the Marvel ones.
question though, like October 2019, you started playing the game. November, FabDB starts. Would have you thought 2022 we're actually having the first Flesh and Blood World Championship in San Jose? Like, did you actually think this game was going to stick?
Yes.
You really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Right from the start, I was like, yeah, this game's not going anywhere. It really came down to market conditions more than anything, in my opinion. I've talked about this before on the various podcasts, like the challenges they had with having the stores to kind of pick it up. Mm-hmm. That was the biggest problem. But I knew the game was sold and I knew the collectability was there. And so I knew that they were sort of supporting multiple files. And we know now, in hindsight, that first edition versus unlimited is not a great sort of approach to that. That's good. We've learned from that and moved forward. Other games are still doing that, unfortunately. So hopefully they learn from that as well. But yeah, no, I knew straight from the start, especially once I got to the calling in Auckland, I was like, oh man, this game just has legs for days.
And you're still bullish about the future of Fab? Like next
Oh yeah,
year?
no, absolutely. So I mean, I think I talked to this with Andrew as well. I think I get the feeling or the gut. I can't know for sure, but I get the gut feeling that Flesh and Blood has hit sort of like a soft ceiling, and it's needing something to kind of push it beyond that. And it could be the Worlds event, it could be a new set. Uprising definitely did some really good things for it. Like I said, like the traffic patterns on FabDB is a little bit different with Uprising compared with other sets. And as far as I'm concerned, like in terms of like failed sets for me personally for traffic, Tales of Aria didn't do very well.
Yeah.
Whereas
I was about to
Everfest,
say
like, was a huge spike. Uprising is a huge spike.
I don't know if you see this, but this is my take because I'm also invested in the game. I think what we've seen is actually a massive loss of players and a massive gain at the same time, which looks like static.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
and that's what's happening on Patreon.
Uprising,
for FabDB.
correct. And Uprising, so Everfest was good. Paper packs, great set. The art was great, all that. But I think when Tails flopped, when I say flopped, too much of it was printed. First Ed's still in the stores today, right now. And as the set goes, the heroes in it are fairly complex. Like if you're a Dory player,
That's
to jump
very
onto
true.
Lexi with fusing and everything,
Yeah,
to me,
yeah.
it just went way over my head.
Yeah.
And also, 0 cards in the set, 0 that I would play on Dory. Zero.
Yeah.
No generic like that I would.
None
well,
generic cards.
Uprising, they went back to. You want to collect dragons, sure, but there's also like literally 5 generic majestics that you would put in a lot of decks anyway. I think what we've seen is the whole Monarch print number thing and investors and people leaving and whatever. You had a couple of metas that were pretty rubbish, like the Starvo meta.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah,
you've got
Starvo was not
Uprising.
good.
I think you probably lost a chunk of people, like a chunk, who might take, like a lot of people, same as PC games, Path of Exiles, will miss a season, but because they were invested in the game, they might come back. You've got like Uprising. I think a lot of people have skipped Everfest kind of thing. Like you had Tails since Monarch. People maybe were on the fence. Tails, they're going, nah, fuck this, and then they've potentially skipped, and you've lost a big chunk, but you've gained a big chunk, and it looks static. But what you need is to continue now with Fab 2.0. If they have it like the set at the end of the year is the Everfest version of Uprising, which is supposed to be. Brings back heroes like Bolton and stuff potentially. That's it's not one thing they need. They just need to keep doing it well.
Yes.
And I think they had that couple of hiccups, quite big ones. Monarch was a big hiccup because of the pricing and
for a
everything.
lot of reasons. They also had product issues around that time, just getting it into players' hands. So,
but to go back to a positive, what you're saying and why I'm bullish on the game, the fact that they succeeded at all,
yes, exactly,
in a paper only product, and then during COVID, both miraculous. Like, no investor would have given you money if you said, look, we're going to make a card game. It's a bit like Magic, but not. But there's no online client.
I think actually a lot of the people
mean?
that got sort of involved from an investment perspective have mostly left, to be honest.
But
and the reason why I say that is because sort of looking at sort of the sales and stuff that sort of pop up in the various groups and that sort of thing, the type of sales now is much more a healthy sort of just players to players. Whereas if you go back sort of like a year ago, particularly during the peak, people were just like selling collections off left, right, and center, which made sense. You know, it made a lot of money.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, like, you know, the worldwide market conditions, the economies are softening worldwide. True. Okay, inflation,
and that's the next big challenge for LSS.
Exactly. So, you know, this is a luxury game. You know, we might see people choosing to play this game as affordable. So when it comes to Patreon, like people are going to start. So when I guess what I'm saying is like, if people try and measure the game's health on Patreon subscriptions or things of this nature, I don't know if that's the best way to go about it, because if people are playing this game and they're having, you know, hard times, they're the things they're going to cut back first. Those very discretionary items, or buying that extra playmat, or doing those extra things. Like people are just going to bear back.
Playmats and sleeves and last thing are the first things to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the cards.
Yeah, that's right. So like it's going to be interesting. Like typically recessions don't actually last that long. Even like the GFC in 2008 didn't even last that long. Like usually these things are pretty short. Usually those things don't last long. So hopefully this one, you know, will be sweet by next year. But it is something to, you know, be aware of.
I'm actually much more bearish on the market itself than the game. I think the challenges have only really just begun. We've got inflation. We're going to get really technical into finance now, aren't we? The inflation rate's up to 7%. There's every sign that's going to go up considerably higher than that. The cash rate's expected to be hitting 2.5% by the end of next year. It's not good signs for people that want to enjoy games.
No, but also, I don't know. I was having these thoughts 2 years ago. Like, all right, COVID, no recession. All this stimulus money.
Yeah, no, it's too early. Because that's what this proliferate through the economy.
But what I'm saying is that this stuff isn't free. None of this is free. Oh, yeah. Every minute you sat at home not working, that wasn't free.
Yeah.
At some point, this feels like, okay, now things are opening back up. Now we're paying up. Correct. Yeah. There was no way that you just come back to normal, which was weird when it felt like everything was normal. It was like it's impossible.
What I thought was really interesting, though, actually, I don't even know if this is the right time to kind of talk about it, but just sort of the policies around COVID, right? I'm talking specifically about New South Wales, not global.
Where we all live, yeah.
I was always really against sort of the lockdowns that they had. I said, I've always had faith in the public to do what they felt was right for themselves, instead of sort of the government forcing us. And you know, everyone's like, no, we need lockdowns, blah, blah, blah. But then if you remember, was it Nathan Peritet, whatever his name is, lifted the lockdowns, but then we sort of had that spike in COVID straight after. I'm not sure if anyone noticed this, but most people, particularly people who were scared of sort of COVID, stayed home.
Yep.
Like they stayed the hell away from the streets and everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's what would have happened. And you wouldn't have needed, I think, the strong injection of cash and stuff that we did. So
No.
I think they really screwed up.
You could always tell from the initial reaction to COVID that no one knew what the fuck they're doing. Doesn't matter what side, what you believe in, no one knew what they were doing. It wasn't you, especially the politicians had no fucking idea what they're doing. And it's not like they went and found the world's leading epidemiologist or whatever they're called and go, hey, you lead this. It's like, oh, this is the chief of police for New South Wales. He's going to decide. I'm like, that guy's going to decide. The cop.
And yet still Flesh and Blood did really well.
That's the crazy thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's still, I think...
Crazy.
Because you've been
still
around, Kirk, in the 90s. How many games crashed? Like, I remember
I wasn't
my-
across that many games, to be honest.
But like even the basketball card market, like the card market's crashed. Like people have a short-term
But again,
memory.
I don't
if
think
you've
Flesh
been
and
around
Blood
long enough,
ca-
like
Flesh
that's
and
what I'm
Blood is
saying.
still
But that's what I'm
player
saying. It's a
game.
miracle. It's a miracle. Flesh and Blood survived. People don't understand that. Like to have their first pro tour before year 3 of the game, and to be like in these times, COVID times, economic times, and you're still getting a couple thousand people in a convention center. It's amazing.
By the way, that's going to be the telltale sign.
It's amazing.
Is the callings coming up? There's one in Singapore, one in New Zealand, Battle Hardened, but then you got Pro Tour Lille and you got Worlds this year.
Yep.
Like Jersey was full, like over full. The venue they could have easily.
It looked amazing. I wish I could have
bigger
gone.
venue, and
Yeah.
they would have probably like they literally turned people away.
Yes. Unfortunately, it sounds like that part was not managed very well.
It was Channel Fireball. I don't, but no. But even the fact that it's Channel Fireball, no one's going to make excuses for it. I think the event was good, but they would just had like, man, they wouldn't refund tickets. Like I had a calling ticket that I wasn't intending to use. I couldn't even refund it so my friend could buy it and play the calling.
Oh.
Like exactly. They refused. They're like,
I think the
we-
systems were very archaic.
no, there's
They
no
couldn't-
such thing, man. I'm
No,
sure
no,
they
that could be the case as well, or at least a contributing factor for sure. What's your guys' take on sort of the takeover from TCG Player?
What? I
Channel
don't
Fireball.
like. It seems like an unhealthy monopoly to me, man.
Well,
No.
That's a
I'm
lot
curious.
of fish in one basket now. That's
For sure.
TCG Player, Channel Fireball, Bind Pos, and I don't know what else those
Channel
guys
Fireball's been going down the gurgler for years. Okay, so it was always bound to happen. In my opinion, I can talk about this for a long time. Okay, whether how they mismanaged their events when they went to WotC and they wanted to run all the GPs worldwide and they over leveraged themselves, and then COVID hit when they put all their content on their website behind a paywall, that screwed them.
Yep.
Like many things, like. Back in 2013, 2014, 2015, like Channel Fireball was untouchable. Their website, their traffic, they were the leading place of singles. They ran successful GPs in America, maybe, 6 or 7.
Well, they're
big
leading
ones.
even over TCG Player?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
for secondhand cards. Like,
wow.
TCG Plays a different model. That's like where you and me can sell our shit.
Yeah.
But I'm talking like a single place
single
that
outlet.
sells secondhand cards. Like, geez, they had the largest bots on Magic Online. Like they were incredible, right? They really were. So they really screwed. They really screwed themselves, right?
Yeah.
Many factors, but I think it was bound to happen. People lose their passion, whether the owner did or whether things went sour over time. So I think it's good. I think it's good they're out.
Yeah, but they're not out. That's
They're
the
not
thing.
out though, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
we don't know all the details about
Yeah.
the handover, and these commercials can take a very long time. We don't know what they might have been paid a certain amount to stay on for 12 to 18 months to manage. Like you don't know what the handover looks like on a commercial side. No one
It
knows.
seems messy because like you got Card Shop Live, you got all these what would usually be competitors. And now in
That's
one.
another project I'm working on as well.
Yeah.
I don't
well,
think.
if it's TCG Player for the Oceania region, or at least someone needs to do that.
No. I've got something I think is relatively unique. I mean, the products like it exist,
Yep.
but not for what I want to do. And it would first launch in Australia if I'm to get people behind it.
Let us know.
This is the problem, man. I have these ideas. I know they would do relatively well, but it's just getting the people and the time to do it that's super hard.
Maybe you need like not a crowdsourcing thing, but I'm sure within the Fab sphere, if it's Fab related, or TCG sphere.
Fab would be a part of it for sure.
No, but like if it's TCGs, and that's
Yeah.
that you got to find like a a communal thing where they'll all do it. Because it's not about you paying or not paying, but these projects work better when you can go, everyone gets shares in it. Let's build it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's getting to the point with me now where I've got these projects sort of moving and I want to move on to other things where I actually think I need to kind of get like a serious investor on board that just want to go, okay, look, we'll
I need
sort this
$100K
out.
for this.
Yeah, I need $500,000 to get this team together. We'll put this together. We'll have it launched by next year. That sort of stuff. Because doing it by myself, I think there's only so many hours I have to do the programming and stuff. So,
what do you rate higher as someone in the IT field? Successful, runs business, looks after people. What do you rate higher? Talent, raw talent, or hard workers? Like literally, if you had to pick someone that had a base knowledge to know what they were doing, but they had an open mind, they could learn things, but they were an incredibly hard worker, or someone that was very naturally talented but inherently lazy.
hard workers for sure.
100%.
And the reason why I say that is because, so I have a policy almost of not hiring juniors. And the reason for that is because juniors, are a false economy in the sense that you actually need someone to hold their hand, kind of get them up to speed. However, there are juniors out there. So we could say then that juniors sort of lack talent, right? Because they're not quite at that pace. But however, if you can find someone with the right energy and the right enthusiasm and the right attitude and they're hard workers, that junior becomes a senior within a few years, if that, because they just absorb everything and they do that. Then you have seniors that just don't give a damn, or intermediates just don't give a damn. And unfortunately, sort of I've hired both where it just hasn't worked out because they just don't want to put the energy into it. They're not hungry anymore. And so juniors can do that. So I would take hard work over talent any day. Because even if they don't have the talent, you can sort of train and mentor people to get the talent and learn that. So.
Yeah, look, I've managed plenty of people over the years, and I'd have the same thing. I'd always look for attitude. Aptitude's important, but definitely aptitude and hard work, I think, trumps it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are people out there also that that they can work really hard, but if they don't have sort of the right feet underneath them for whatever it is that they're doing, they can be really problematic. I won't say what it is, but at my sort of day job, we had this competitor in Australia, and this competitor in Australia wasn't doing a particularly good job, and so we basically like wiped our asses with them, to put it bluntly, in the market. And the reason for that is because they just didn't do a good job. But unfortunately, the lead engineer that they had just wasn't very good. And the reason why I know this is because he actually ended up applying for one of our jobs. And so I had a feeling, I was like, is he kind of just trying to get information from us? I ended up talking to him, and I talked to him. Yeah, I gave him some stats and stuff, just kind of like just subtly let them know like where we are in the market and what they're up against. And he was blown away by sort of how well we'd done, but also his skill set. Like even if I wanted to hire him, I couldn't, because his skill set just wasn't there. And he'd been working in sort of IT and programming for say 15 years, but he was missing so many concepts to make him a really good programmer that I'm just like, and I gave him some really sort of harsh but honest advice. I said, look, like, you're just not at a level that I could hire you. I said, you need to learn this. You need to kind of get up to speed on these things, these concepts, these technologies. I said, and then maybe we could talk. And unfortunately for him, I could tell he was a bit deflated after that. I said, but the reason why I told him is because I was in his position when I was sort of 10 years into my career, in the sense that I knew how to develop. I wasn't an engineer. And so I make a distinction between developers and engineers. Engineers being people that can develop, but develop in such a way that it has longevity in the products that you're building, so that 10 years from now, 20 years, it still works, and it works in a really good fundamental way. But I didn't have engineering skills. And I ended up joining Westfield, and I joined a team of engineers that were just slapped me silly. Just like, this is what you need to be doing. And that set my career on a really good sort of tangent and path. And so I'm hoping I did this for that guy by being kind of, give him some hard truths, but you never know. So
what would you be your number one advice, Kirk? Young person, finish their HSC, maybe 19 or 20. They haven't gone to uni. They're just floating. They're working, smart enough. They want to get into IT. They want to get into programming. What would you recommend how to start? Like just a complete person. They love games. They have an interest. They play around with mods and things like that, so that, they're into that. But like, what advice would you give that 19, 20, 21-year-old, how to break into the industry, whether it's through tertiary education or work experience or building a portfolio? What would be your advice?
I would first say build things that you want to use, because there's nothing worse than sort of building products that you don't really find any value in. And I've built heaps of those where I'm just like, you end up not having the energy to kind of really sort of push it forward, which is why I think FabDB has done relatively well, because I had that energy and passion to build a product that I actually really want to use. And the second thing is, let's say, for example, you want to get into game programming. It's a really highly competitive market. There's a lot of people that want to get into games development, but only very few actually get through. I would recommend that you do things like build mods, build mods for games and that sort of thing. Like get yourself known in communities. And then eventually what happens is the publishers start taking notice of you and the developers start taking notice of you. Like, oh my God, they've done this amazing. Like, let's say we want to do map design. You want to do level design. You just start, you learn how to build these hectic maps that everybody loves, and suddenly, boom, the game company comes and says, we've seen your work, like, come join us, do that. And that stuff happens all the time, and the reason why it's so beneficial and valuable is just, it shows that you have enthusiasm, it shows that you have passion, and it shows you have an interest in wanting to do things, and you don't need a company to carry you. It's like, I'm going to get there regardless, right?
So you can basically enter into these industries without some sort of a formal qualification. Like,
I'm not formally trained.
Like, right, yeah. And that's the thing too, like the most brilliant people I know in IT aren't.
Yeah. And I don't think you need to. Like, we're not talking about heart surgery here where, people's lives are literally on the line. We're talking about sort of developing products and things for people to use, and mistakes can be made. Mistakes will be made. And so people shouldn't be afraid to kind of jump into things and just kind of get started on doing that sort of stuff.
So your advice for a young person would be, do what you're passionate about, be obsessive.
Definitely obsessive.
Yeah, be obsessive, build things, showcase things, get involved in a niche community.
Yeah. And if you don't have a kid, bloody well work 16 hours a day. Like, get into it.
Yep.
It's a bit hard when you've got family and you've got other priorities and responsibilities. Once those things are in place, it's much harder to kind of invest that sort of time. I'm lucky if I can get 3-4 hours a day in now, right, with Lexi around, whereas early on in FabDB's life, I was doing at least 25 hours a week on top of my full-time job, maybe more sometimes if I had the time. So, and my wife knew I was kind of getting a bit obsessive about this, so she kind of stayed out of my way, which was nice. It was good.
It helps when they know.
Yeah. She knew this one was a bit different because I have project ideas all the time, and most of them go nowhere. Whereas she's like, okay, let him do what he needs to do.
Before we end, my main channel, Fluke and Box, is sponsored by FabDB. Why don't you give us the FabDB Patreon spiel?
What do you mean?
What do you get as a patron of FabDB?
Oh, right, okay. My apologies. Well, we're not going to be on Patreon for much longer.
Kirk's nudes. That's what I'm saying.
Why would you pay for that? He sends them out for free. You're doing it wrong.
They're not dick pics, though. They're just ass cheeks.
I thought we were friends, man.
He thought he was special.
Are you a Patreon member?
No, I'm not.
There you go. That's why. Yeah, so I mean, we're moving off Patreon anyway. So one of the big projects we're working on. So Card Tech is sort of the parent entity. I'll get back to your question in a second. So Card Tech is the parent entity, which I'm thinking of changing its name slightly. But Card Tech manages FabDB, Wrath Times, Technical Labs, and some other things that are going on, like this, Rivenstone app project and a few other things. So it's basically, just apps and community projects for these various games. Excuse me. And so we're looking to sort of bring it all together under the umbrella. So soon, I want to say soon, next couple of months, you'll actually see, when you log in, you'll actually be directed to the Card Tech website. You'll have your central account there, and you'll just be logged in wherever you go. It doesn't matter wherever you go on the network, which is going to be awesome. But the reason why I'm doing that also is to build a subscription system there.
Directly with you.
Yeah, directly with me rather than with Patreon. And I'm a little bit concerned about what that might mean. Patreon has sort of the network effect in the sense that if you've already got an account with Patreon, sort of signing up to be a patron of some other website or project is really easy. It's really sort of tough. So I have a slight concern there. But Patreon, including exchange fees, that was about 20%. So it's a very painful, costly exercise. So anyway, the reason I bring that up is because, you can sign up for Patreon now and you'll get all the benefits and stuff, and you'll never lose those regardless. And in fact, the Patreon membership will be slightly cheaper. So once we sort of move to subscription-based model,
the same tier or whatever.
Yeah, it'll be slightly more, just because, I haven't increased the prices in, what are we going on, almost on 4 years now? Going on, yeah, we'll be 4 years next year. So going on, it'll be... Yeah, we'll be going on 4 years. Sorry.
4 years next year, yeah.
Yeah, 4 years next year. So, if you want to sign up and support the project, then now's a good time to do it, because once we move off Patreon, the prices will be going up just a little bit. Anyway, so we have multiple tiers. We have one tier, effectively, or have sort of one price tier for Wrath Times, which is $5, but you get that by actually signing up to FabDB as well. So once we set up the subscription system, you won't have to do that. The reason why I did that was actually just to kind of keep it simpler. But once we have our sort of multi-product subscription system, you can just sign up for the Wrath Times, whatever. But if you sign up to FabDB, it's only $3 a month, and the base sort of level support you get is open to the gallery view on the deck builder, which means you get all of the gorgeous images and stuff in the deck builder itself. Some people like that view, some people don't. Some people prefer the list view. Just depends on how you like to work, but I quite like it. And you get a sort of a preview with that with the sideboard, actually. If you use the sideboard functionality, you sort of see what the gallery view looks like. In addition to that, you also get sort of draft mode. If you go up to Majestic tier, you get sealed mode as well, which is pretty interesting. So you get your 6-packs, you draft your cards, and you can build your deck just from those cards. And then if you go up to Legendary tier, then you also get things like the Team Sealed, which I think was first... Was that the first event that Channel Fireball did? They did the Team Sealed event, I think. Anyway, the cool thing about that is you sort of set up a Team Sealed sort of round, and you just send a link to your friends who also have a FabDB account, and then you can basically do the sealed thing together, and it shows you who's got what cards and what decks and all that sort of thing, what they've drafted. So it's really good for Team Sealed practice. And then in addition to that, you've got things like avatars and a few other sort of features around the side. So there's a lot of stuff there. And then all of them have sort of a plus mode, which gives you Wrath Times access as well. So Legendary Plus, Majestic Plus.
Actually, before we end though, Kirk, I really need to... thanks for sharing that, Patreon. I don't mean... When you said avatar, just tweak something in my brain. I have wanted to talk about this on the podcast, but I couldn't think of a better person to speak to about this. Really, I couldn't. And I've spoken about it on my channel. Now, did you play Magic at all?
Yeah, early 90s. I actually played beta. And I have none of those cards left, unfortunately. Right.
Well, in the 2000s up until maybe they nuked it in 2017 or 18, I can't remember exactly, they had a Planeswalker point system, similar to Gem, right? Yep. So you'd log on, you'd get a certain amount of points per win. Yep. Okay, you accumulate a certain amount of points in a year, and then when you attend a GP... similar to a call-in, if you have enough points, you get a buy in the first round.
Yep.
If you hit a certain threshold, you get 2 buys. However, though, depending on different things you did, you could change your avatar. And then you had little achievements that you could unlock.
Oh, yeah, gamification.
So, awesome. So, like, okay, you've played in 7 different continents, so you'd be like a Rome, like a world, like Crucible of the Worlds, like that card. You'd have access to that symbol, and it would be on your icon. Or you've won, 4 FNMs in a certain amount of time. You'd be like an assassin, and then you could go up different levels. Like it would be with armories. You win a certain amount of armories. Anyway, I just think there's so much space for LSS to expand in their gem account system. Like, I really think, like, it's, in my mind, I don't know, I'm not a programmer, I don't know how expensive this stuff is to implement, but instead of, like, sending more price support to stores, printing more things, logistics, all that, I would love to see the gem account system expand, where you unlock achievements, you have avatars.
They have talked about this before.
Have they?
Yeah. They talked about it, I think, maybe in 2020 or early 2021.
Jeez.
But they talked about sort of certain gamification features that they wanted to bring to the gem system. But I don't know where they're at with that. Like,
is that hard to implement? From a programmer perspective, like, how hard would it be to implement something like that? Like, you have little symbols, avatars, like different rankings,
it's not a hard system to build. It's just very time-consuming in the sense that planning out all of these achievements and tracking them is probably the hardest part. But it's not a particularly complex system. Like, for my game, I'll absolutely be having sort of stuff like that. And I've thought about doing it for FabDB as well. So the gamification, you've created 5 decks, you get a certain badge or whatever, those sorts of things. So, I mean, they've definitely mentioned it before. So,
I just don't think LSS, it's high on their priority. There's some of this stuff.
Exactly.
Like, they're struggling.
I've offered to join them too.
But I think that's the sort of stuff that gets people playing more Fab. Like, I think these are easy, low-bearing fruit. It's easy to pick, and it just gets people playing more.
I'd say it's a secondary benefit to the game itself. So that's the problem.
True.
And you're right, it's all about priorities. So.
Of course, but if I had if you could look up the Tall Timmy, and like I knew that I could unlock some traveling avatar, but I had to play in one more calling in one of the continents. So I'm like, right, I'm going to Singapore. I'm going to Asia. I want to unlock that. I'll do it.
See, if they could unlock the gem system, I could do stuff like that on FabDB. I could just look at your stats and give it on FabDB. It's like, oh, look, you're a wanderer. Or
a wanderer. I think they were called that. Or like, you're an assassin. You've won like 3 armories in a row.
You're 8-0
you've got a hot streak.
Top 8.
And then they used to have different things, like in a month, in a week, if you'd played a certain amount of formats. So say if you've played Blitz, Constructed, Commoner, Draft in one 7-day period in a week, you unlock some achievement. Like you can set dozens of these little things. And I would try and unlock them all.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I'm
I
that
really
kind of person as
would.
well.
I'm obsessive like you, man. Like definitely. Like I would, like, you know, Fluke knows me. I am. Like I would do that. I would.
I've got a friend that's like that. That when he plays games, he only 100%s them. Like that's what he does.
Yeah, I do that. That's like if I had those little carrots, man. Timmy's love carrots. We just love being on that mouse on that treadmill, right?
Yeah.
Like that little spinning wheel. So, like, that's what I wanted to speak to you about. Like, is that hard? Is that a expensive, complicated thing?
It's not hard when you have the data the right way,
Like-
right? Because that's all it's doing is checking and then going.
Like, I'd love to see that before more player rewards.
Yeah, I know exactly how I'd build that kind of system because I've had it in my mind for ages. So I know exactly how I'd build it. It's not necessarily hard, but I still think they would need months of development and a couple of engineers.
Let me explain what I'm trying to say. I don't think I'm guessing, but as far as I know, LSS is 30-ish employees. They're based in New Zealand. So they're also starved for talent. Like, not that there's no talent in New Zealand.
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
they're not. They do not have the access you would if you're on the east or west coast of the US.
So that's a great thing about like the way I work, both in my company and with sort of card tech, is that I look to hire globally. I just want the best people.
But my understanding is also New Zealand. LSS want to hire local, and they want to import talent, and they've really struggled to do that with the COVID stuff. They've been, especially because
they should honestly look remotely.
But they've actually said that. But they haven't been able to leave New Zealand to even go. Like
they don't need to.
You say that, but I think they want to. Like I think that's how they want to hire. That's how they want to.
I know, but my point is like
I'm not
doing that.
There's other ways.
The Kiwis love hiring locally.
But
I tried to immigrate to New Zealand in 2005, and I applied for a sales rep job over there in New Plymouth. Oh my gosh! And I literally got knocked back because they basically said to me, "I'm sorry, you're not a local."
It might have changed now.
And that was with Mars, like the parent company.
Yep.
So it was a big company, right? But yeah, I basically got told, no, we only want to hire someone from you. And I'm like, my wife's from this city? Like, you know, I was like trying all the, and they're like, and I'm like, I've been there a few times. Nah, sorry. Like, so I know that. I know the
You're
Kiwis.
too ochre. They'll never accept you.
I'm like, the Kiwis love hiring their own.
What I think was happening with LSS, and I could be wrong, but my gut is they are at capacity of what they can do till they grow. Like they're in that, and I like the programming aspect as a non-digital client. I think is done in house, and
it's done in house. But the thing is, I don't even know if they have a team there.
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. I don't think it's.
I think it's just one guy.
They don't have a dev team.
Yeah,
and that's the companies that are like the way they're focused. They're more likely to hire more ops people to grow before they hire.
Yeah,
a company like that in 2022 needs like 5 people in a marketing/content role and 5 people in a dev role to get all this stuff happening. Because there's a lot missing meaning if you compare it to what you see out there.
Yeah.
But as it goes, their art is world class. The game system's world class. But then you got this stuff like Gem, which is not world class.
No, Gem's not world class. The data management is awful.
But you can tell that they physically don't have the 200-300K a year worth of salaries they should sink into it to make it world class or to outsource.
I do think, and this is a sort of a kudos to LSS. I think they sort of have sort of ruthless prioritization in place in the sense that that there are certain things that they're willing to accept that they will sort of let slide or not be as good, just to make sure that the product does well.
I'll tell you now, right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
All their money is going into new sets and organized play. Like their organized play, like Jersey, phenomenal. The rewards, the spoilers, just.
And they'll be like that for a couple more years, I think, before they really start to push on the tech stuff.
But my advice would be exactly what you said. Just let the community do it. Like if you go, we don't want to spend the money on making Gem what we want it to be. Work with someone like FabDB. Yeah. Maybe get people like you see. You got a judge program, and it's like
Gem needs to be internal though. That's the thing. It needs to be an internal system.
I'm saying, but they could let access. So you could then on FabDB.net, I could have my little icons, or I can import my deck. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Just let other people do it. You still control it. Still your API. Like you can also flick the switch if you.
Yeah, if you don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. Yeah.
But let the community mod. That's the simplest way to put it.
Yeah.
All the best games in the world.
The thing is, even to get to that point that they need someone to develop. I could be wrong. I think it's Rob that does the programming, but I could be wrong on that one. Hi Rob, how you doing?
Well, if it's Rob, that's not a full-time job then.
But the point I'm getting at there is that even if they have a full-time person develop an API to support Gem properly, you're looking at a lot of work to kind of get that going. So, yeah, like I said, I think it's just ruthless prioritization, which I think is a really good approach to have, particularly on sort of startups.
They're small. Yeah. They're a start. They have to right now.
Yeah, and
I mean, all companies should do it, honestly.
and
A lot of companies don't.
They haven't even hit their 3rd anniversary yet.
No.
Like, in year 2, WotC didn't have all these systems in place. Like, these things take time.
Yeah.
Like, they do take time. And like you said, their prioritization's ruthless, and they're focusing on new sets and OP, which they should be.
Yeah.
It's core tenets of the game. Hopefully, as the company expands, they can
We'll
do
see a
different
lot,
things,
I'm sure.
You know, but that's one of my big wish lists for Flesh and Blood is really, like you said, gamifying, is it? Or
Gamification.
Gamification of the gem system.
It was really big in tech and sort of like company stuff like maybe like 7-8 years ago. Like everybody wanted to do this all of a sudden, and it just disappeared really quickly because they realized for corporates it doesn't really make much sense.
I'd love to have an avatar with badges and all
Yeah,
sorts of
absolutely. I
stuff
think it'd be awesome.
on my gem account, and you could see it like when you see the 90-day XP, the lifetime XP, it actually shows their name, their avatar, their badges that they've achieved, and
It's one of those things that's still missing from FabDB actually, is like you can't see the author of a deck. Like
No.
if you go to a public deck view, you can't
Correct.
see the author and go to it, even though like that all that stuff is linked up and ready to go.
That would be great because there's a lot of trash
Again,
decks on
prioritization,
FabDB like
just
that
not.
people have built, labeled competitive, and you look at it, you're like, dude, you have 4 blues in the deck. How's that even working? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it'd
a
be
lot of
great
it's-
if I could go, which decks did Arsenal Pass actually make and go?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, Zach from Team Covenant asked me if we could sort of do certain features on FabDB so that they could kind of link to decks and
Yep.
have the videos and stuff. There, I was like, it sounds awesome, but I just don't know when I'm going to be able to get to it. So,
Yeah,
but
fair.
coming back to the gamification, if I was to do that on FabDB, which there's a stack of stuff I could do around that, no problems. You then need to make the community sort of center stage because people want to see the avatars, they want to see the the nice kind of frames and stuff they've got there, any badges they've unlocked, that sort of thing. And FabDB, it's not so much about community; it's more about sort of the content that everybody's producing.
Yep.
So it would need a shift, I think, in design as well, which I'm doing anyway. The card view, the deck view, all these things are all going to be changed pretty soon. So for the better.
looking
Cool.
forward to it.
Yeah, should be good.
All right, guys, we'll end it there. Thanks, Kirk, for spending
having
the
me.
night
Yeah, that was
with
awesome,
us.
Kirk. Cheers, mate.
Let us know when all these new projects hit. We'll pump it on our socials as well.
Sure.
And I'd love to test out the new format. We'll do a world premiere. No, for sure. If it's like new, don't even tell us what it is.
I won't.
Like
I'll come in and we'll play.
You give us decks, we'll hit
Yep.
record, and
Yep.
we'll get first impressions, like
So what
real
do,
ones.
what do you think? Before Christmas, we'll get you at an armory?
Yeah, I think so.
Sweet.
Yeah, no, there's things I need to get away. Like this whole card tech project needs to be out of my hair. It's been on my list for at least a good 12 months. So get that out of the way, and then I can focus on my game. Once I'm focused on my game, then I can start gaming.
Fair.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll
Thanks,
see you
boys.
guys soon. Thanks
Cheers,
for
Kirk.
watching.
Awesome.
Thanks. Bye.